Hey there, SCP fans. My name is Grigori Karpin, and this is Simply Creative People, the show about SCP creatives, be they authors, artists, or offsite content creators like YouTube and TikTok. We're focused on bridging the gap between various fans and serving as an introduction to different concepts and stories on the Wiki. So, many welcomes to all, and let's get started. Okay, so welcome to episode 16 of Simply Creative People, and today we have two guests again, which I think we're going to try and do as much as we can because it was so much fun last time. So, I'm Grigori Karpin, author in the SCP Wiki, and joined as always by...
Rumor has it, I'm Harry Blank.
And one of our many guests, one of our 15,000 guests, we have Stonefish, Lord Stonefish. Hello.
Hello, very nice to be on the show with you both.
We're very happy to have you.
To talk.
There are three of us, Stonefish.
That's right. And Tstaffor, you're also joining us today.
You better Parawatch this whole episode. Boom, got the pun in first.
Yeah, wow, before Harry. Well, you know, that's impressive.
I wasn't going to make that pun, it's just audio.
Okay.
Be nice to the guests.
I can't believe this, I'm leaving.
You're the nice
Bye.
one.
The show. I don't know this. This seems like a cruel show. I don't know. Is this the Joe Rogan
It is.
experience?
No.
Grigori
God,
has the radio voice. He's the nice one.
I have the radio voice that I constantly missay stuff, so it's completely invalidated.
I don't missay things, but I have a nerd, awful, just robot voice, so we balance out. Together we're complete.
Together we're like Voltron.
Yes, two-person Voltron.
That's right, just two. It's just the legs.
It's just two legs.
Or maybe it's just one leg and the torso. It's really fucking awkward.
It's a pair of legs kicking in the air, and then you just flip end over end.
That's right.
No, we're a pair of arms, and then we have a pair of watches.
Oh, nice. Very good.
See, that one made sense.
It took me like full good 5 seconds for that one.
It's very good.
So, it's kind of rote at this point, but I think it's still so much fun to hear how people have discovered SCP. So, Stonefish, how did you find yourself, reading and then writing SCP?
Well, how else does anyone find the website? TV tropes. Back in the old childhood days, it was full of you go to look up some things about your favorite movie, and what do you know? You discover, there's this website full of interesting horror. I think I started reading the site in 2014.
Oh wow, that's like when I did too.
Yeah, I think it's when a lot of people did.
Yeah,
but of course, as I was a wee small baby then, and I couldn't post anything, and my ideas were garbage. I think. Literally, I think my first SCP idea was like an iguana, but if you cut it open, the inside, it didn't have like insides, it just had hot apple cider, like malt cider.
That's not scary, that would be great.
That was great, yeah. I didn't like the scary ones, I liked the cool ones. I think my favorite was the vending machine full of weird shit.
It's a good one. That's a solid one. Hell yeah.
So solid. I remember the old unpruned log when it was full of references to The Jerk, like the Steve Martin movie and other things like that.
So timely.
So timely. Classic reference to the 1979 film The Jerk,
which is a really, really good movie, though.
It's aged so well, the title still makes perfect sense to people who are around now.
I joined the site under a previous username, Underage, was a doofus.
Oh, you should not. Why would you make your username Underage? That's just asking to be called.
That's just asking for trouble. Oh, God, I was a dumb teenager.
I'm amazed that Zinn accepted that application.
Hello, I am underage. I am 18.
I don't know about this one. And then I figured out how to be a human being, and now I'm here.
Teach us. I don't know that.
Yes, please. Oh, God.
Okay, well, Tstaffor, how did you find the SCP Wiki?
I was surprised to find out a fellow Reddit find. I found it through, I think it was just generic old Ask Reddit, someone was like, what are the craziest, most disturbing released documents from, like, released classified documents? And I sadly wasn't actually tricked into believing it was real. I wish I had been for at least a little while, but
So
they
you weren't,
prefaced
like,
it.
8?
No. I was like, man, how old was I? It was back in like 2017, so probably around like 13, 14 or so. And they just prefaced it with like, well, this isn't real, but it's really fun and cool. And it was a link to, I can't remember the number of it, but it's Humans Go Home, which is about like this house that has constantly foggy glass. And if you like write with your finger on the glass, another person will respond.
Yeah.
And it's this like weird
really
like, alien
good.
guy.
I forgot
It's
all
a
about
really
it.
fun one.
Yeah.
And it has like the perfect mix of like the intro of like good special containment procedures of like this place is locked down, and then a description of this like spooky thing, and then it also has those great discussion logs with the SCP in question, and it really hooked me instantly, and I binged them until I think I ran into it was the Shy Guy. I ran into that one and freaked out and didn't look at it for another like 6 months or something. And that's how it kept working. I would like binge for like a month of tons and tons of SCPs, find a scary one, which I joined late enough that there was a ton that weren't spooky, but I'd find one that was spooky, it would scare me, I'd be freaked out for like 6 months and then come back to it until actually fully joining the site back in 2021 and writing for it. Which
Oh
has
my
been
god,
fun.
because I did the same thing. But the one that scared me away was 835, the one with the coral infection. And that one was so gross.
Yeah, that one
I just
is
went,
gross.
yeah. I just went, ugh, yeah. And then I took a break for like just 8 months. Because it was like, oh, no, I don't like this anymore. No.
I weirdly, I don't think I ever took a break once I found it, because I used it consistently, because I've always been a big reader, and I've always, like, for years and years, downloaded books to my phone, and then when life started getting so hectic that I felt like I couldn't even read a book, it turned into that thing that filled that hole, and so I just, I read for years before I did it, but I was older and, like, had read much worse things in terms of spookiness, so I never kind of got scared away, but there's certainly ones that have grossed me the fuck out. We do body
I mean, that's
horror.
not like it's difficult or anything.
Yeah, I know. We do body horror very well on the site, honestly.
Yeah, it's kind of our specialty, the house special, as it were. Yeah.
I've only done it once, but I did enjoy the hell out of it. All right, so, because we're talking about Parawatch, and that is so remarkably focused on horror and creepypasta, I thought we could talk a little bit about horror, like what it is that we either enjoy about the subject, and then, how we try to utilize it. I think we've all done at least a few that are spooky, whether they're existentially spooky, like I mostly focus on, and I know, Stonefish, that's kind of your deal as well. So yeah, I don't know. Like, what attracts you to horror? In a medium, whether it's writing it or reading it.
Interestingly, I don't really like consuming horror very much. But I had a lot of nightmares as a kid, like vivid nightmares as a kid. And I'm a filmmaker, so I was given all these books of like when I was like 5, I had like the best movies to rent on home video of 1993, and that was sort of like one of my primers. And so you'd get these books as a little kid, and like there'd be like full color stills
Yes.
from the Thing of like the Thing's transformation, and then or like you'd read about A Clockwork Orange or The Exorcist, like these films that everyone's like super disturbing, gave nightmares, and then I would have nightmares, and then I didn't watch them for years.
Oh, that is something I'm obsessed with too. I love just going to Wikipedia and reading the like plot synopsis of horror movies.
Oh, I've done that with
Yeah.
TV tropes for horror movies. Yeah, that's kind of fun.
yeah. I've done that exact same thing. But, what ends up happening is the nightmares I have of watching those movies. And because it was never like I was scared Freddy Krueger was going to get me. It was I am sitting in a theater watching A Nightmare on Elm Street, and I can't move.
That's so much worse.
And it was like there was never a threat of like Freddy Krueger was going to reach out of the screen and stab me and say a quip. It was always like I am watching something incomprehensible unfold in front of me, and that really informed my like artistic practice across all mediums. Is just tapping into like that subconscious fear of something. Yeah, so that's why I'm drawn to horror. It's just because I'm chasing that feeling I get only when I'm asleep, and very rarely have I had it. Like reading horror or writing horror, but I still keep chasing it anyway.
No, I get it.
I've had that same type of nightmare. Mine were more video games. I played the Lego Harry Potter game, and I was young enough that freaked me out so much. There's this level where you have to, like, the one where Dumbledore's, like, drinking from that fountain to get a Horcrux, and there's, like, these people coming up from the water. I had this nightmare where I was hitting the pause button, the plus button on my Wii controller, and it wouldn't pause. And I was so scared and confused. Why isn't this pausing? That's one of the only like vivid nightmares I have at this point.
That's very, very fucking charming.
I love that.
It's funny, I also got into it because of horror movies and reading the old books about horror movies. My mom loved horror flicks all the way from back when she was a kid, when it was just like 50s creature features. But my dad hated them. Like he still to this day cannot watch anything that's horror related. And so my mom, somewhere around the age of 8, in a very irresponsible parenting move, decided I was going to be the one that watched horror movies with her, because I think one of the cartoons I liked had monsters. So she thought, oh cool, I can show you, Silence of the Lambs or whatever. And it informed both my significant phobia of cannibalism, which is funny to this day, but it also, I got really obsessed with monsters. I never really liked slasher movies. I've never really liked movies that have horrible death scenes, but I do really, really have always related to monsters. And so my mom got me this huge, it was probably like a coffee table book, but I was a little kid, so I'm not sure if I'm just imagining it being bigger, but it was one of those pictures like you said, where it's like a full color spread of horror movies, but it was really focused on the classic ones, and it was summarized them like Frankenstein and the 1930s movie of Gollum and M and stuff like that. And I remember reading, and it wasn't the monsters killing people that scared me, it was the existential stuff. It was the monster in Frankenstein with the little girl at the side of the lake, tossing in flower petals, and when they ran out of flower petals, the monster throws the little girl in because the monster just thinks that he's playing.
Wow.
And it just fucking haunted me. And I didn't see that movie till I was, in my 20s. And even though the actual scene is not nearly as effective as I imagined it, it still like stays with me. The horror of like, in his innocence, the monster kills a little girl. Or the social like ostracization, I said that wrong, marginalization of the Golem from the, if you've ever seen that movie, it's very much a movie about anti-Semitism. But, the monster is pushed away just like the monster in Frankenstein is. And it wasn't the rage of the monsters and how they ended up killing people. That didn't bother me. It was all the existential social stuff that bothered me. And still to this day. So I always have felt like horror, maybe even more than comedy, is a great way to talk about society's ills. And the horror movies that do that are the ones that I care about.
Like I had said before, you can go. I'm sorry.
No, please go ahead.
Like I said before, a lot of the content that I consume related to horror is not actually the scary content, it's the content related to it. Like I was obsessed with reading the Wikipedia plot synopsises, or there's this really great YouTube channel called Dead Meat that has a series called The Kill Count.
Mm-hmm. Of course.
That I love that type of horror content. That's kind of the content about horror, and I think that's one of the reasons that I love the horror of SCPs, is it's not really the scary movie, it's the document talking about how they contain that scary movie.
Yeah, totally. And I I know that that's not true of all... Oh my goodness, what's happening?
I think someone just got devoured by a monster.
Or it's real.
But yeah, SCP in terms of like the way that it can add so much commentary to...
The Digibeast is upon us.
Stonefish?
Hi, I'm sorry, I had to go turn out the lights for this spooky episode.
It sounded like you were going through the colon of some horrible thing.
Oh, that is staying the fuck in.
You can't cut any of that.
No way.
Oh, god damn it.
This
We
is the
got
first
live
thing
footage of the inside of a monster's colon. We can't cut this.
we actually had horror on our horror podcast.
Finally, it lives up to we live up to the title.
That's right, and
You know.
we're not going to get better than that, so let's just transition.
Yeah.
Let's talk about Parawatch.
Sure.
So, I don't know how much Parawatch has, gotten to off-site fans, which some of our fan base very much is, and the thing that I like to do is to kind of try to explain these things without giving away. So we're going to talk about a bunch of articles, but we're not going to try and give away much of the twists, although, if it's a particularly good line, then fuck it, let's do it. But I'm going to read this little bit that's from the Hub, which is the Parawatch Wiki is an online web forum of conspiracy theorists, paranormal enthusiasts, and amateur writers operating with the intent of investigating and exposing anonymous phenomenon. Geographically, the group is disparate, its users primarily hailing from North America and Europe. No common background exists, age, careers, or other demographics vary. Although Parawatch is heavily invested in the investigation of the anomalous, continuous monitoring has found that the group lacks a comprehensive understanding of the Foundation's existence, the Veil, the nature of anomalous phenomenon. Theories posed by the group lack context on actions, leading to inaccurate beliefs that limit the potential for information. The thing that I always thought was hilarious about that was that it sounds like you're leading up to a comedy gig. Because the way I would follow that up with is let's make fun of conspiracy theorists. And instead it's fairly straight. It's taken in this very let's use this as an excuse to do creepypasta, which is fun.
Right. Because
Sure
before Parawatch, there was just the creepypasta archive.
Right.
If you wanted to write something totally disconnected from the SCP universe, there was just a little archive of standalone creepypasta, except they were not really creepypasta because they weren't really shared. And there's some couple good ones in there. A lot of Dr. Gear's original short stories.
Yeah, I know he loves those.
He loves those. There's two from Yorick, Only in Dreams, and I Have Something to Share, which are very good.
Yeah.
And then there's Callanan's The Manistique broadcast, which is an amazing piece. But they never really got any attention. Outside of Gear's Birthday, where you do a little flash fiction creepypasta, no one read those. With good reason. A lot of them aren't very good.
Sure.
In my humble opinion. But yeah, Parawatch is kind of filling this niche where it's now we can connect them to SCP if we want under this sort of in-universe umbrella, but we play it straight.
Yeah.
We're just going to do genuine creepypastas with this loose framing. And I like that it's not played for comedy. I like that they are not doofy. Oh, look at this guy.
Yeah.
Oh, there's a couple exceptions, but they're there for color more than anything else.
Yeah,
I'm sure we'll touch on this more
Go ahead.
with when we get to that article, but the origin of Parawatch on the wiki was the Great Hippo wanting to write creepypastas,
Right.
and wanting just some backdrop for a reason that this would exist in the SCP
Right.
universe.
Oh, actually, sorry, that's not quite true.
Is it?
One of the other things were, because Hippo came up with the concept for the framing, but the GOI itself originates in one of the articles we're going to talk about, 3840, which is a Natvold AIC piece.
Oh, I didn't realize that was the origin of it.
Yeah,
I read
that,
and I was just like,
'cause
oh,
that-
that's a cool reference to Parawatch. I didn't know it was the originator.
Because when did Hippo? That was recently, but this one is that one is old. It's 3 years older or something than the earliest Hippo Parawatch articles.
Interesting.
So sorry to butt in like
no,
that.
No, it's fine. The thing I really like about it, other than the things you've all said, which is, that all reasons to like it, is also it can be used as a really fun window on other concepts in a very, ground level way, which is something that the SCPs and Tales often do not do. We don't really check in with, like, civilians or the people that are uninformed, and it's really, really quite a lot of fun to take that perspective and then tell a creepy story. That's, winking at the reader while in universe is very straight.
Yes, I think it's one of, like, the only groups of interest that are completely anomalous initiated people. I
think you're right. That's the entire premise, which is, pretty fucking genius when you think about it. Just because of the sheer amount of fuckery you can get up to. Like, you can just use it to talk about existing articles from a completely different angle. You could use it to talk about something that maybe you wanted to do an SCP of, but you kind of think it would fit better here. Like, it's so malleable in the most fun, wonderful ways. But Tstaffor, you said you wanted to read a little bit of something before we did that, so why don't you do that?
Yes. This, like what Grigori read, this also originates from the Parawatch hub, as kind of an introduction to what Parawatch is. This is a little shorter creepypasta posted in the introductions, or the Why I Joined section of the Parawatch forums by Blank Spots is the anonymous poster.
Blank Spots.
And feel free to interrupt this with any thoughts you have or interjections on Parawatch.
Or any terrifying noises you might be able to generate with your microphone.
Okay.
My brother used to be a fisherman. 6 a.m, he'd shift out of bed, drift into the kitchen, sift through breakfast without so much as a single clink of a utensil, and once I'd wake up, the house would be empty. He'd drive to the lake a few minutes off the town outskirts, and, once he was content, he'd drive home. Same hours, same timing, always caught, always released. Always kept to the vicinity of town, the small-scale lifestyle. Liked it best that way, he told me. I never worried about him. He was a strong guy, and even if his hick flare radiated off of him with enough force to set a Geiger counter ringing, he was smart. He could find his way through a forest and trace his steps with precision to repeat the same path a day later. Knew better than to go out fishing when it was night. It's when the weird things start to swim. But even the few times he did, he'd turn back safe and sound. It was why he was the only person trusted with finding me when I went missing. Here's what I remembered of myself. At 4 a.m, I left bed, unable to sleep, and went to the kitchen to make breakfast. I left a set of plates and utensils on the table, pulled my brother's fishing gear from the closet, and, without a single clink, stumbled out of the house. From what I hear, several people saw me treading the path my brother normally drove along the lake. I'd never gone that way before. All I was thinking of was the dull, warm wind and a pinching pain at the roof of my mouth. No one intervened. They all thought I was heading to see my brother. I blacked out. Here's what other people have told me. At 6 a.m, my brother found blood in the kitchen. It trailed straight through the woods and stopped 3 feet from the lake's edge. Footprints halted too. He knocked from door to door, asking anyone if they'd seen me, and soon after cop cars pulled in around our house. They told him to stay put, that they could handle a search and rescue operation, but when they scoured the lake, he went off on his own. My neighbors wished him luck. At 9 a.m, he'd came back, my neighbors asking if he found any signs of me. My brother stepped past them and locked the front door shut. Every blind was dragged down, every curtain closed. The people who saw him go in said he had a 1,000-yard stare. He didn't come out for hours. At 6 p.m, just as storm weather rolled into the region, my brother unlocked the front door. He told my neighbors he was going fishing. He carried a loaded shotgun with him to the car. No one intervened. All the police noted was that his car was parked by the lake. Sometime early the next day, a mile from town, surrounded by nothing but tree after tree after tree, I woke up. There was a hole in the roof of my mouth. My brother's shotgun, blood-smeared and unloaded, laying in my hands. Like water soaked my clothes. I couldn't remember what happened that night. I couldn't remember where my brother went. I couldn't remember why half of him was dripping in the dirt next to me. The paramedics who found me there said there was a fishhook in my mouth. I left town for good. I settled into an urban apartment, one in the city where the streetlights never fail to shield you from the shadows, where I've stayed ever since. but that night clings to me. Whether it's the numbness I feel or the blank spots I recall, what happened out there left a permanent scar on me. Having to hear people go through similar experiences to mine, some having even less resolution than mine, makes it worse. This is why I joined Parawatch. I want to document all the unnatural events that others have experienced, to inform people on what lurks out there just out of our sights, to help anyone who has the misfortune to encounter it. I want to bring people the resolution they need. For those of you who are passing by, I hope you take the time to read what we've compiled, to better avoid the circumstances people like myself have fallen victim to. And for those of you who are in it for the long haul, welcome to the Watch. We aren't in this darkness alone.
I love that final line, because one of the other things about Parawatch that is so cool is that it's basically us commenting on ourselves as a community.
Yeah.
You know, playing on the "we die in the darkness so you can live in the light." Here are people in this darkness, of course, together. And the whole thing, because there's a history of Parawatch article that's like a pastiche of site history sort of events as well. And it's this amazing way of commenting on our own roots, because the fact that it's out of the veil kind of gives perspective to the whole thing, because if you don't have a group like Parawatch, the universe of the SCP Wiki threatens to go into that story where, like, everyone's anomalous except Dennis.
Right, exactly.
And Dennis is like, wow, I'm the only guy. Because, like, you can have 3 Portland's wizards and robots from Anderson Robotics, and everyone is a flesh crafter and whatever. But then you get this perspective of, like, oh, there are people who still don't know. And we don't know what this thing with the fishhook is. Someone could write a decent article saying, oh, it's just a little forest spirit. It's a little man in the lake, and he's pulling, and we could write that character from a sympathetic perspective in some canon. And we don't get that. We just get a boy and this incomprehensible experience, and his brother is dead and we'll never know. It puts both our writing in perspective as we've moved away as a writing community from the horror of our roots, and the universe that we've created in perspective.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing I think that is the most fun about it, kind of chiming in with what you're saying, is that these most often preserve that mystery that is, I don't think it's completely absent from modern stuff. I try to evoke it a lot.
No, of course not. I do too.
But certainly we have leaned a little bit harder on the, like, let's go into this in very scientific detail. And the fact that, that was so evocative, that piece you just read, Tstaffor, because it's just like, what the fuck happened to this kid? It's so good.
There's a great thing that Parawatch can bring to the table, because in a lot of SCP articles, it's all like research and here's what we know and here's where we've investigated and this is what happened. And then Parawatch comes in and it's like, here's a weird thing that happened to me and I have no idea how this happened.
Well, that's the other thing that's always so much fun about it, is the SCP document. If it's wrong, there has to be a reason.
Right.
It has to be like somebody's fucking with it, or they're intentionally screwing with whoever's reading it, or you're not qualified, or there'll be a twist that's explained later. But the Parawatch documents can blur that line where these people don't know what the fuck is going on, and half the time they're repeating bullshit they heard on the internet, or half the time they're trying to make sense of what they saw. So it can actually be wrong and misleading and confusing and a little hazy the way real life actually is, in a way the SCP documents usually can't be.
Yeah, we have, and this isn't a complaint because I kind of dig that about fans. We have a lot of fans who are very interested in, like, piecing things together. It's why I consistently get questions about Victim, because I don't provide any of those details. And I think it's so much fun. I think that's why Parawatch is so evocative, and why, why Parawatch as a GOI does not suffer the same sort of, getting lost in the weeds sort of thing that a lot of articles do. A lot of these articles have been very well rated because it just calls to that, that inherent, wait, what the fuck happened here? I just love, and Hippo is such a master at it, but all these articles are such masters at it, where it's just like, okay, I kind of get what happened. I understand. I can put it together. But the article itself is not actually telling us. In almost any of them, you have to be putting the pieces together, which is such a fun fucking exercise. And the best part about that opening is that I want to so bad, and it just fails to give me enough to do it. And you're like, I can almost this fisherman sort of thing, it's so good. And one of the things, and I put it in the outline, but I kind of am interested to hear if anybody else has like fun headcanons about it. I know Tstaffor, you mentioned you did. Parawatch is one of those things where we only really see people's posts, and so the background, how it's run, we don't really get to see any of that. How widespread is it? How many members are there? And it's really open for interpretation in terms of headcanon. And I personally have always kind of thought that the reason the Foundation has such a good understanding of them is because they're actually like leaning on them fairly hard. To discover anything that they maybe have missed, and also B, to like shut down anything that gets a little too close to the veil.
Yeah, a couple of the articles coming up will include like the Foundation stepping in and most likely taking over accounts to say like, no, actually this isn't true.
Yeah. See, I actually lean the opposite way. I don't, even though that we do have articles where the Foundation steps in, I don't think they're leaning on them that hard. I think either a lot of the stuff that Parawatch people discuss is A, not real in universe, or like, is the skunk ape real? Maybe not. Or it's either in containment and they know about it. So they kind of keep an eye on it, but I think they're harmless, is the other thing I love.
Yeah.
Is like, aside from like the occasional supernatural entity gets in there and fucks around with the forum users, and we got a couple of those, which are the same ones, I think, that you're talking about, Tstaffor. It's not really something that, like, there's no harm that can happen here. It's just people being like, I saw a ghost in my room. I saw Bigfoot once.
Yeah, it's not really a threat to the veil. Yeah.
No, it's in no way a threat to the veil, and so I headcanon that they don't really have to cover anything up. Because if someone goes, I saw a scorpion in the ceiling and it had human eyes, it doesn't mean anything to the Foundation. Because they're either nothing they can do about it, or they've already done something about it.
Right. And also, even if they, these people did, provide the first discoveries of something anomalous, who's going to believe them anyway?
Right, exactly. Because they're, I also do like, the one thing that I do think is, also love about Parawatch, they're conspiracy theorists who are innocent. Like, in universe, they're like, no anti-Semitism, no lizards, and no blood libel, like, no 9/11 stuff, none of the political conspiracy theories. It's genuinely just ghosts in Atlantis and things that go bump in the night.
The stuff that used to be kind of charming when we were kids, thinking about conspiracy theorists, like about people like keeping like weird file cabinets in their apartments full of weird spooky stories, and you're like, oh, these are the people that think UFOs are real. And now we all know that they're all just racists.
Right.
It's horrible.
Yeah.
There's something like Art Bell coast to coast innocent about this whole thing.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's so much nicer to see people whose conspiracy is that, like, the whole world is strange and they're seeing manifestations of the strangeness in various places, as opposed to people whose giant worldwide conspiracy is, some people aren't like me and that can't be right.
Right.
Which is what we get in the real world.
Yeah.
Can we... and I can jump right from this into one of our first articles.
Go for it.
If you don't mind.
I did want to touch on
go for it.
My personal, very, very wild headcanon
Go ahead.
for Parawatch, which, personally, I don't actually, like, have this in my main headcanon, but it's just a great concept that I absolutely love, which is, if any of you have read it, SCP-4010, an attempt to catalog what we've accomplished.
Oh, yeah.
I think.
That's the timeline one, right?
Yes.
It's incredible.
So a researcher she's assigned to, like, get a timeline of all of the SCPs. And, I mean, it's impossible to do.
Right.
So she goes crazy doing it, and in attempting it, she actually, like, destroys the anomalies until, like, and there's, like, a point where there's only, like, 5 SCPs and 5 researchers who are each assigned to one of them, and then it's just 173 and her, and then 173 stops moving. And she tries to go about her life living it normally, but she can't. She's been so dedicated to researching anomalies and stuff, and she loves it so much that she wants to bring them back, even though they're so horrible and destroy the world on multiple occasions that she's researched. She wants to bring them back to have something to do in her life. And so she goes onto internet forums and starts chatting about them with people and talking about how there used to be this statue or whatever. And then once she starts doing that, they do start coming back. And so my headcanon is she was going on to Parawatch, and Parawatch is 001. It's the origin of the Foundation.
That's good.
It created all of them.
That's a headcanon I like, yeah.
These
That's
people
fun.
making these creepypastas are what bring these SCPs into existence.
God, that's a really good article.
It's such a good one.
But yeah, you
I-
wanted to jump into one of the... Which one did you...
No, but I mean, to build off of that point as well, like, her going to in these communities and talking about these anomalies and finding like-minded people is another part of, like, why the innocence of Parawatch is so important. To jump into one of our articles, I Man by J. Dune, which is also about the essential nature of community.
Oh, absolutely.
Where it's about a group of people all around the world who Mandela affected a Star Wars alien. And it plays on that sort of childhood thing that people who grew up with the original trilogy have of, like, collecting action figures of Walrus Man and Hammerhead and all these, like, background characters. But it's really deep down about community and, like, how people connect via the paranormal, which is something that I love about it. Like,
Absolutely.
It's like...
the monster at the...
No, I think I know what you're going to say. The monster itself isn't really the point. Like, the point is that feeling that you get when you find a subreddit or a group of people or a Facebook group or whatever who all remember that cartoon that you also remember.
Yes.
You know, like, I remember for years I had, like, faint memories of this 80s cartoon that I must have seen on VHS or something called The Inhumanoids, about giant monsters that lived underground, and it was, you know, sort of like a Transformers sort of thing, but they were all horrific monsters. But I kept thinking, there's no way those actually exist. There's no way there was a cartoon about this. And it wasn't until I started getting a little more savvy with the internet and trying to find it that I actually, no, it did exist. At some point in the 80s, some fucking PR guy thought it would be cool to make toys out of really, really fucking disturbing looking monsters and sell them to children. Which, of course, I loved as a child. And it has that same feeling. This article perfectly encompasses that. Like, there's this thing I watched one time, and, you know, it's why Candle Cove is so famous.
Oh, absolutely. Tstaffor, you picked this one, right? Out of curiosity?
I did. This is actually... I've stopped doing SCP narrations just because it's a time-consuming thing to do, but when I did do them, I did like 5 or so, and I-Man was one of the ones I read out. Because I really enjoyed this one. Just the flow of it, I think, works really well for a creepypasta. You really get to know the guy writing it.
Absolutely.
The childhood stories and stuff.
So why don't you read this, like, opening blurb that kind of breaks it down, the part that's in italics.
Sure. Every I-Man account starts out the same. A young boy between the ages of 5 to 9 watches Return of the Jedi in theaters after months of anticipation. They enjoy the film, but become particularly vested in the various aliens and creatures inhabiting Jabba's palace, specifically the Cyclops. The roles that I-Man supposedly fills in the film vary between accounts, but only add to the intrigue of this mythology. Some claim he only stood in the background alongside other extras, with brief focus shots like the ones given to other extras. Others remember a scene where I-Man accosts protocol droid C-3PO, who is acting as Jabba the Hutt's translator. I-Man proceeds to brutally dismember C-3PO as Jabba and the palace denizens cheer on, some catching pieces of the droid's plating that fly through the air as the Cyclops continues his assault. The alien takes time to chew on the droid's wires before unceremoniously ripping C-3PO's head off with his mouth and swallowing. This lasts for an extended period of time with no musical score and is never referenced again. The film proceeds as normal, with C-3PO apparently being reconstructed by the next scene, as if nothing happened.
That's so fucking...
As if he were made to suffer.
Which he was. Oh my god, Dune is so fucking good. This whole thing just seems like such a fucking nightmare that you almost start going, yeah, that sounds familiar.
Yeah, well, it's obviously, it comes out of the fact that Dune knows tons of shit about Star Wars, like, knows enough to be happy that Tstaffor was saying Jabba instead of Jabba. That's the level of Star Wars fan that Jay Dune is. He knows all this stuff already. He knows all this action figure stuff. He knows all this convention stuff, and he's writing about something he's passionate about, and that's why he's able to make it have that verisimilitude to it. I also enjoy how you're all, until we read that horrifying scene just now, you all made it sound like such an uplifting thing about finding people. It's a horror story.
Is, though.
It is. It's both.
It starts out with that, but then it goes into like him growing up and finding this nice community of like-minded people who had this terrifying experience of C-3PO being ripped alive.
Yeah, and it is wholesome and uplifting, and it is also the source of the horror that it leaves you with.
Yes.
It's brilliantly both at the same time.
And the horror of the community, everyone coming together, is what makes this horrifying. It's in the same way that if you take away the forum part of Candle Cove, you get a somewhat creepy children's show, like vague nightmare energy. Like, I-Man himself, compared to real Star Wars extras, is not as frightening as, like, the bug-eyed guys who play the space saxophone, who I've literally had nightmares about. But, like, what's scary is everyone getting into arguments online about, no, you didn't rip C-3PO apart, no, he didn't do this, no, he didn't do that, and that's where you feel the real horror of this, like, figure haunting all of these people.
Yeah,
and they really do go hand in hand.
Yeah, and the fact that it like leads to these people, you know, having these horrible nightmares where they're chased through the forest and etc., etc. That isn't. I agree. That isn't the scary part. The scary part is the idea that all of us, probably everyone that's contributed or read anything on the wiki that liked it, has had something where they were this fucking keyed up about it. And whether or not they had nightmares about it is not the point. The point is you can imagine. You can see that precipice. There are things that I have been nerdy enough about, you know, like, for example, I fucking am obsessed with a 1998 Square Enix game called Xenogears. It's like one of my favorite things in the world. And I have gotten into not recently, but like in my youth, like online debates with people about what certain parts of it meant. And you can see that precipice every time that we have been, you know, super into a nerddom, you know, whether that was SCP itself or something else. You know, there's always that part where you go, okay, is this over the line in my life where I'm just obsessed? And that's what these people are, you know. And it's about this tiny, it's not even Star Wars, it's one thing in Star Wars.
I actually had a really funny, it was a very similar experience to those people arguing about this scene. There's a great article by Plague PJP called Director Quincy Harrison III, Site Director Gumball Machine, which Plague heavily rewrote a lot of it at a point. But I first read it before that rewrite happened, and so I got into a heated debate with someone when we offhandedly mentioned it that the Quincy was not an accountant or whatever, and the other person was like, yes, he definitely is, and we actually had that type of conversation just because they read it once it was edited
Plague
for him to actually be an
PJP
accountant.
bringing the community together.
Plague PJP giving people Mandela.
Yep.
Now do it with actual Mandela. Nelson Mandela. That'd be even more impressive. Use an SCP article to convince somebody
that he actually died in prison in the 1980s.
Exactly.
That'd
be great.
That'd be great. But it's interesting.
I didn't just tell everybody to gaslight everybody else.
Of course
that didn't just happen.
Once you tell people to gaslight, they can't actually gaslight because you got it on tape. Now there's evidence.
Oh, right. I'm just providing a defense against it if anybody were to do it. That's why I did it in the first place.
Exactly. But the Mandela effect is one of those great, like, bridging the gap between, like, classic forum big man skinwalker shit and contemporary creepypasta. Because SCP-3546, Gump, which is another one on our list, is a more comedic like take on the Mandela effect and like the obsession that people have with their memories must be correct.
Yeah, that's true. Parawatch is a great vessel for that.
Exactly. And you talked, Grigori, about Parawatch not being funny, but this is a time when Parawatch is very funny.
It's very funny, and we can just skip to that one and come back to we don't have to do these in order. Yeah,
Sure.
so SCP-5346...
If we want to, I just have to do one quick shameless plug for iMan.
Sure.
My one gripe with iMan is some of the sentences can be a little run-on, and during my narration, I had an amazing blooper where I was reading it out, and there's this one line that, like, spans, like, 3 rows, and I ran completely out of breath and freaked out at J-Dune in my recording. If you're up for putting that in.
You hear that, Dune?
Very funny
You hear that?
blooper.
You're being called out.
Iman proceeds to brutally dismember C-3PO as Jabba and the palace denizens cheer on, some catching pieces of the droid's plating that fly through the air as the sigh. Why are you kidding me? That's so long. J-Dune, why'd you write this so long? It's like 3 rows. It's too many.
But, yeah, so Gump, which is by Jack Dragon X, and it's SCP-5346, and it's not a traditional Parawatch document. It is a SCP that, like, then references Parawatch.
Right.
And it is certainly funny. I will give you that. It is. The premise is fucking ridiculous. And the best part is that it kind of ties into this idea of false memories of what Gump did or did not say in the movie, which is a whole real thing that people talk about. But then he brilliantly links to YouTube videos of, like, deep fakes with different actors, and, like, there's, like, an implication that this is, like, an alternate universe Gump where, John Travolta played him or something. It's such a funny bit.
It's hilarious because it's where so much of Parawatch is about celebrating the genre's tropes and tone of classic creepypastas. Gump undercuts all of that by taking maybe the least scary performer in existence, Tom Hanks, and putting him through a generic lost episode creepypasta to sort of call out how ludicrous not only those kinds of stories are. What if The Simpsons had hyper-realistic blood and no one saw the episode? But also how silly, like, these sorts of, like, Mandela effect things are. Like, people going, the Berenstein Bears, the universe must have switched. And it's like, no.
I miss my old universe.
You were 5, and it was a children's book. But, like, the whole thing...
And they weren't even good books.
They were not even good, no. They were preachy as hell.
Preachy as fuck.
Fucking stupid-ass bears. But the whole thing is such brilliant satire of, like, paranormal communities online in general.
It sets things up in this fucking hilarious way because the way it's set up is this is deadly serious. So I'm just going to read just literally the opening bits of the description. SCP-5346 is a cognohazardous phenomenon that may manifest upon viewing a specific scene of the 1994 film titled Forrest Gump, which will result in severe cranial trauma to the viewer. The cause of this affliction has yet to be fully determined. This segment, known for the phrase, "My mama has always said life redacted like a box of chocolates," spoken by the film's protagonist, Forrest Gump, does not exhibit any outward anomalous effects. However, expired victims of 5346, otherwise known as Dash Ones, all previously shared an obsession over the particular scene and the phrasing of the quote, which is considered to be the primary trigger for the events to manifest.
I also like the redaction there, hinting that even just reading that quote can kill you.
Yes.
It's the phrase "severe cranial trauma" is instantly funny.
No, yes, it is. But, like, it also is, like, perfectly kind of poking fun at, like, the seriousness of SCP, and how we talk about how these very simple things can have, like fucking Reagan cut up while,
talking. Yeah, exactly.
Like, that is the same kind of idea of this very normal thing of, like, a speech by a politician that turns into body horror. And this has that same feeling to it, except for it's going, but no, seriously, wink, we're gonna go pretty fucking silly here.
Yeah. What if Forrest Gump was a murder monster is a hell of an opening premise.
Fucking
really.
hilarious.
Right, exactly. But Jack Dragon X, the author of this, has so many funny, precise things that I love. Like the guy signing all his posts Rage the Comics signing out. Brilliant. Or the people like Forrest Gump throughout the movie is unnecessarily odd. It's like he's watching us almost from the screen, and just like it's so the command of language to get these jokes is so precise it makes me jealous. Like it's so effortlessly funny. And I cannot believe that it's so enmeshed in that tone. It's so good.
Oh, it's so good. And because it never... I feel like the only time there's even a slight wink to the camera is the links to the deep fakes. But they even make sense within the narrative that's being told. But yeah, I mean, it's that perfect satire in the sense that like it does not ever stop to go, haha, we're joking now. And yet
it fully expects you to be on board with the idea that this is a scary thing that's happening to these people.
Right. And then in that context, you realize, oh, this is a joke. Okay. It's so good. But I like how it
the
pays
fact that
off.
The series
too.
title name was Gump didn't immediately tip you off.
But I like that it gets paid off too, because it ends like with somebody like fucking dying in a horribly violent way.
Which is a very frequent way to end Parawatch articles. They're all, everybody's safe, you're in universe, they're just writing out on a conspiracy forum, and then somebody stops responding.
Yes, that is an interesting kind of aspect of Parawatch, is how to kill off a character where they still can get their messages out there.
Right.
Like where to stop them
Yes, that was
talking.
handled actually well here.
Yeah.
Because there's two genres of Parawatch articles. There's only a few that are like... It's nominally a wiki, but I think in-universe, like, the wiki shut down or something. So there's only, like, a handful of wiki articles.
Yep.
But in terms of forum-style stories, there's two. One where, like, people are talking in a forum, and they're, like, responding post by post. So someone will say something, and someone else will go, dude, that's so stupid. and then the first person will, like, provide more spooky detail. Mm-hmm. The other one, that's, like, Michael the Killer. And the other one is like just a straight creepypasta that one person tells, and that's like Tower B or Sunday Dinner.
Yeah, or Substation 9 as well. Yeah.
Or Substation 9. All of the hippo ones are like
There's
that.
also the third type, which is kind of like the live journal, like Grigori's in the Carpathian.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, they tell the one story, but they tell it in parts, and other people chime in between. And
I could.
There's a lot of anthology ones too, but the general.
The goal in the Carpathians was to try and do something like what Hippo would do, and I just like couldn't stop myself from trying to do. Like, I mean,
it's impossible now, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, it's also just the sense that like I just needed desperately some place for Hog Slice to be in an article of mine, so I was like, here it is. This is my one chance. Only now I've done it a couple times, but. But you brought up Michael the Killer, so let's talk about Michael the Killer.
I love Michael the Killer.
Everybody loves Michael the Killer. This is for everybody who's not aware. This will come up later, but Parawatch articles are not GOI formats; they're tales because nonsense reasons I don't understand. This is a tale that's rated at plus 359. Parawatch articles are the only tales that are highly rated that you write like today. And it's crazy.
Also, to make sure we shout out the author, it's Michael the Killer by Rat King.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
The great Rat King.
Rat King or Pasta Rasta.
Right.
Yes.
I love everything Rat King does.
Everything Rat King, the audio,
everything.
The visual aspects of Rat King stuff, especially because his art is so good and it's so evocative. He does these angry circle-headed people, and they're so just always so perfect.
They're always so like childlike and yet so evocative of like, if not violence, then some sort of existential like. I don't know. They're so good. He just did one that's not Parawatch.
With round faces and round eyes and scribble mouths should not be able to express that much emotion, and they do.
I can't remember the name or the number, but the like Goat VR.
Oh yeah,
has some of my favorite like art on the wiki.
That's got a hard name to. The series list name is non-indicative. That one's always hard to look up.
It's called. I think it's called "You Get Used to It" or something.
Yeah. That's what it's called. Yeah.
He just did one called, which is not Parawatch, but it's Le Sad Man. Which is
that one's doing really well.
Yes. Oh my god, it's so fucking good. Anyway, all right. So Michael the Killer is pretty like the most straightforward idea of in terms of formatting of like a forum story. So like we have somebody who comes in and it's somebody we've all met. It's some white name, or, you know, by that I mean somebody who's just joined, who has no idea how the things work, and it this person decides to join the Parawatch wiki and join the forum and then start telling a creepypasta. Or at least that's what it seems like. And it's
like their own origin story.
Right, and it's just the most childish, like...
embarrassing, edgelord, grim, silly.
Every one of us has been either in Discord or IRC or someplace else where someone just decided this was the way that they were going to talk to people or introduce themselves, and we all just went, oh, God, stop it. Except for, you know, maybe it's not quite that.
And the people who respond in this case are the worst possible people, because they all respond instantly with scorn, derision,
absolutely.
and mockery.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, they, in a classic horror story fashion, they get their comeuppance.
They sure do.
Right, because internet people never know how to behave in a creepypasta, because they immediately poke the dog, and it immediately bites them.
To be fair, in real life,
they don't
they
always
know.
comment angry stuff. They start being pretty nice to Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, at first they aren't that harsh. It's more like a, hey, what's going on? This isn't a creepypasta site, guy.
And then he keeps going.
And it just keeps going. And the best part is how believable it all is in terms of, like I said, like we've all been in a conversation in a room somewhere where somebody, you know, just some child who just learned how to swear, like decides to like lash out because not everyone loved their weird story.
Right.
And this is exactly that, because when people start calling Michael out, or, you know, I forget the first user's name, it's just like, go fuck yourself, you piece of shit, blah, 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 blah. You know, I'm gonna stab you in the brain, you know.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then they get banned, and the thread is locked, and then, you know, a couple days later, maybe the next day, somebody who in that original thread called out how bullshit it was is now the person who's posting the second part or the third part.
Right. The thing that I actually love about this is beyond the transition from like, and he had black eye, like very obvious child creepypasta, to like genuinely hard to read graphic violence in this very childlike style. The other part is, it's not the next day. This is the part I love. When you look at the dates, Rat King is so good at this. It goes like, the first story is posted on like the 16th of September 2013, which again, brilliant detail. 2013, creepypasta heights.
Yes,
and it's
totally.
like the start of the school year, right? Brilliant. And then like when the next guy posts, it's like 15 days later. And then when the third guy posts, it's like a month later. So like
the whole thing is over a course of, I think, a month and a half.
A month and a half, which means like something is actually happening in a way that you can actually sort of piece together.
Yeah.
It's so good.
It's also really good
It's
because
like a real,
good.
actual, like...
You can miss it.
Something's happening in between these posts.
Right, something is going to each of the houses of each of these users. Yeah.
And taking their Parawatch accounts.
Yes.
Well,
That's
maybe something else. But yeah,
yes, obviously, but the more important thing is they're taking their Parawatch.
I think is what's really very fun about it, or one of the many things that's fun about it, is just how missable the horror of it is, because it takes a while for the tale to come right out and tell you what's happening. When, you know, I think it's like the third iteration of it where someone goes, no, wait, the person who's saying this has been here for months.
Yes, I love that about this, because it's
Yes.
exactly the kind of shit you get in a horror movie where all the characters who are experiencing the horror movie don't know each other.
Right.
Because this is what happens when you're reading a forum full of people you don't know, is you don't really look at their names, and you don't look at what they're saying, really. You're just kind of like, oh, some rando I don't know is saying this. So it takes these people several posts before they're like, wait, is that your original user? Wasn't that somebody else's user? They don't notice it right away because these people don't really know each other, because they're just the angry people who are on Parawatch at the worst possible time.
This one also includes some very incredible attention to detail that really makes it realistic. Like, when someone starts kind of freaking out a bit more and typing faster, like, Pastarasta actually stopped for them putting in apostrophes and stuff into their text. Like, it actually feels like someone's, like, writing multiple forum posts really quickly in a row without thinking too much about editing.
Yeah.
Yeah, Pass is really good at showing people screwing up and sometimes typing in leet speak, sometimes typing in like shorthand or people who are bad at typing. He's very good at range and at the destruction of the English language.
I also really like that this one really evokes different characterizations. Like, I really feel like there are different voices here. Like, you can immediately tell, not just from the details, but how the sentences are structured by the person that's been taken over by Michael the Killer, or by the person, the different people that are talking to him have, like, different voices, even though they're just angry posting on a forum. It's very impressive.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's actually worth mentioning as, like, a benefit of the Parawatch thing as well. Each Parawatch is its own story or several stories, but there's also a story in the usernames, because all these characters have usernames, and there's this beautiful thing in pretty much everybody who does a Parawatch where the usernames intentionally clearly refer to personal things about those people that aren't explained in the article, because that's how internet forums are. We don't know where the hell we all got our fucking names from unless we ask each other. So you read Michael the Killer, and they've got names like Headache Manager, Rusty Lung, I'm the one who has no guns, and you're like, I'm sure that means something to these people, but I don't know what it is, because they are their own little people in their own little world. Yeah. And it adds to the believability of the whole thing.
Oh, for sure.
And, of course, the, like, pretty blatant other SCP author references. I mean, even, like, one of the main characters in this of Posterusta's Tale is Rostamasta.
Rostamasta. I love that one. Yeah, that's also something people love to do, because we have a wiki and we have a forum and we have all these discords and IRCs, is people will insert references to each other into their Parawatches. I like this person too, whose name is just Coca-Cola.
And of course with the Coca-Cola color as their username color.
They do. Not even the color of the logo, but the color of Coca-Cola itself.
Yeah.
The thing about so many of these articles, less so about hippos because they're just straight creepy, but like so many of them do just barely touch into like funny. Like, because Michael the Killer really isn't a funny story. It's really horrific. But there's all these little details that are really funny, and I love anything, because I feel like comedy and horror are so related.
It trends into black humor all the way through. Absolutely it does.
This is also, like, if I'm going to want to introduce someone to Parawatch, this is the article I link.
Of
this
course.
is
Yeah.
And it's amazing to me, because this is one of the more recent ones I read. I only read it after Past actually asked me if I had read it. And the reason he asked me if I had read it is because I independently invented almost the same scenario, but not as well, in my Parawatch. And he was like, this really reminded me of this one. I'm like, oh. And then I read his, and I went, shit, this is way better than the thing I wrote.
Yeah.
But, like, the hippo ones are just a very different vibe. They have a, like,
100%.
Michael the Killer is playful above all else.
Yes.
But, like,
not the hippo ones.
Not the hippo ones, of which, like, I think we're looking at Tower B and Straight to VHS Sunday Dinner, which I think we can sort of cover in, like,
also
one
Substation
swoop.
9.
And Substation
Substation 9 has to be included in any discussion about Parawatch, in my opinion.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. But I think... let me get the link for Substation 9 is the other one we're looking at. Thank you.
Yep.
But the other ones are like Abwesenheit, which is great, and Escape from Terminus, which is also great. All 5 of these are brilliant.
It's almost like The Great Hippo is great.
Yeah, it's almost.
There's
Who would have thought?
We're not going to talk about I don't know how to pronounce it. The one that starts with A. But
It's Abwesenheit, I think, is how you pronounce it.
that one, there's a lot of articles that I just really enjoy actually reading author commentary on as part of the article, and that one, like, the explanation is as much part of the article to me as the article itself.
Me too. There's two of them are film related, and 3 of them, three of them are media related, and 2 of them are like industrial related. And there's a beautiful verisimilitude to these that, like, I shared Abwesenheit with a professor of German film that I know, because long story short, it is about a German experimental filmmaker in the 1950s and his anomalous films. I'll say no more, but despite the fact that there was no avant-garde cinema in Germany in the 1950s, it just didn't exist. There was one in France, there was one in Japan, none in Germany. Hippo still gives you this precise sense of place and time.
Yeah.
And it feels so real. It feels so genuine.
Oh, absolutely.
And
This feels very cliche to say, so I hate to say it, but it's not even about the content of the article. It's the way it you feel while reading it.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
The atmosphere of it.
Sunday Dinner, which is the one we're taking a closer look at, anchors itself in this real discussion of underground gore-based horror by referencing real films like Faces of Death, Guinea Pig, and Cannibal Holocaust, as well as classic movie rumors like The Suicide in the Background of The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
Or The Blair Witch Project.
Both Straight VHS Sunday Dinner and Tower B both do a really great job with the creepypasta writer completely changing subject for a little bit and just going off on a tangent that brings back.
Oh, Substation.
halfway
Substation
through.
does that too. Yeah. It's
yeah.
so good.
It's the
they
Star
bring
Trek
up
The Next
some other
Generation
anecdote
trick.
that
It's
comes
you
back.
do the B plot and then you use the B plot to solve the A plot. So
Right.
Let's just go to straight to VHS Sunday Dinner. I mean,
let's just go straight to VHS.
Let's just go straight to VHS.
Forget the podcast.
This is a straight to VHS audio
This is the
discussion.
direct to video episode.
hey there, fans of Simply Creative People. We're mostly unsponsored so far, so I figured I would take the time to mention that you can support the show on the show page at anchor.fm/simplycreativepeople. Or, if you're so inclined, you can check out Harry or my Ko-Fi pages at ko-fi.com/harryblink or /Grigori Karpin author. Things are crazy tough out there, so if you can't afford any financial support, and trust me, we understand, do us a favor and mention the podcast to someone who might enjoy it, or spread the word online. If we want to bridge the gap between fans and creators, we've got to get the word out to new fans. In many ways, this show is designed to be appealing to new and old fans of SCP alike, as we can all enjoy some discussion about this thing we love, and we can all learn something new. Heaven knows I learn something new every week. Thanks so much, and we love you just for listening. Thanks for the support through all these first few months of the podcast. You're the best.
Makes sense for Parawatch.
Makes sense. Yeah, absolutely. God, this article's so good. It freaks me out so much.
The image is...
It freaked out Grigori so much he couldn't read it.
right.
He thought it was about cannibals.
Yep. I genuinely looked at the image and went, nah, I'm good.
Yeah.
That's such a gross image. I didn't actually look at that when
the
I read
Hippo
it.
is so good at... Great Hippo is so good at making that type of images. He also made one for, like, a video game, a haunted video game.
Oh, yeah.
One
yeah.
that's, like, the back and front cover of the old, like, 90s or 80s video game, and it's so good.
Hippo is amazing with images and video. I mean, like, I think one of the best things done on the wiki and images is how Site 5 comes at you from the past as you read the article. It gets closer.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Like, the amount of different images in that article.
And then the videos at the end.
Oh my god. And then Substation 9, all of those photos of, like, industrial hellscapes are from his own collection.
Right.
Shout out to Site 5 being one of the other articles that made me stop reading for like 6 months.
That's fair.
Yes, exactly.
Yes, this industrial horror that he's getting right out of real life with photographs and videos is just so cool.
I'm so jealous, honestly. I don't want to go into any of these places, but I'm jealous
of your
video.
terrible jobs.
Yeah. God, but, like, as a filmmaker and as someone whose brain only thinks about cinema history, Straight to VHS Sunday Dinner is so precise about all of that, from like mentionings of Troma Productions and these tiny independent film, like it mentions an actress named Susan White who hosts a podcast and then independent. It's like so perfectly evokes this tiny world of indie horror, like nuts, people whose life is bloody disgusting and like Fangoria.
Right, exactly.
And all this shit that they love.
I really want to stray away from any spoilers for these articles because the point is you should go read all of these.
You need to read these.
But the thing with Sunday Dinner, I think, does a really great job of is you see that picture, you go into it, you're really expecting to read heavy descriptions of gore or something like that because of that image and what it sets it up to be. And it's long enough that it keeps not doing that, really.
Yes.
So when it does do it right at the end, it's really a hit in the face of, okay, no, we are going to this.
All of these are great. Substation 9, personally,
Well, we're gonna
I think
save
is
that
maybe-
one. I want to save that one towards
Yeah.
the end because
That's a good final one.
I love
Or
it
not
so
final, but-
fucking much. And then I love it because I didn't even totally put together the pieces and had to read through the comments to understand it, and I still thought it was brilliant because I just thought, oh, maybe the answer isn't even in there. It's just a spooky ass story. And then when I read his spoilerized explanation of it, it's like, oh my god, that's incredible.
Again, one of those ones that like is so incredible twice.
Yes.
Like reading it is so amazing, and then reading the explanation is an article in itself.
It's got so much detail, so much world building. It makes this location so palpable and horrifying and interesting.
But first,
So we will save that for
speaking
later.
of,
We will go
But
back to
first,
that.
Tower B.
There's more.
Because Tower B is kind of
Tower
the same
B.
thing. Tstaffor, you said this was your favorite creepypasta, so
Yes.
maybe just
This is-
we're not going to give away the spoiler at the end because
No.
my god, it's great. But just kind of set it up. What's this about?
It's about a dude who worked at the Tower B, a like oil rig or something like that, like a tower in the middle of the ocean, who was one of the deep sea divers who would go down and repair it and stuff, and who worked closely with, like, you'd have a pal in there who worked closely with another dude, and right after the writer of this retired, like only like 3 months or 3 years, I can't remember, something very quick, his partner in diving seemingly killed himself coming up one of the times, and it's always troubled him why his partner did that, and so that kind of is what sparks his research into it, and he goes into different anecdotes about like how he just got some axolotls and how apparently axolotls are actually like a juvenile organism that actually like in its evolution has chosen to decide to not fully evolve to live on land and instead live in the ocean
Yeah.
and stuff like that. And
The tangents
It's so good.
are really good because it feels like a person who is actually kind of flow of consciousness. Like it keeps going into other
yeah, it
directions.
feels like chatting with someone at like a party.
Right.
You're just like randomly sitting on a couch with a person you've never met, and they're like, "Let me tell you this crazy story about this dude who died recently."
But then he breaks into like a discussion of like axolotls, or he breaks into like, okay, and here's what diving down there is actually like, and it's the details of just what it's like to be a diver down there. It's like, wow, that's already kind of crazy and like hard to imagine and spooky, just in the sense that like, you're on the bottom of the ocean and all this pressure and etc. etc.
Right.
And then it kind of circles back to trying to piece together how this person killed himself, and it's just fucking genius.
It's so good.
It's hard to do in this type of format, but he does like actual like kind of line breaks in the tale where there's no other comments from other Parawatch users or anything. There's no interjections, but it's still split up into 5 separate posts that this guy made, one after the other on the same Thursday night. So it does kind of have chapters to it. There's
It's like he had to
sections.
take, the way I'd like take it is he had to like take a breath. You know, it's just like, I got this bit out,
Yeah.
and then when he came back to write the next bit, you know, he was slightly distracted, and he starts talking about the axolotls or some other aspect of it, and then he kind of slowly tunes back into the point, and then, you know, it sounds like it goes real slow, but it's not. You just breeze right through the whole thing. But yeah, it's
having to pause to take a breath and also dissociating a little bit in the middle of the stories actually does, in a sense, kind of add to the feel of being underground,
Exactly.
underwater,
Yes.
taking in
Exactly.
your breaths and getting a little bit of rapture of the deep.
And then that thing he does where he talks about the realism, because he mentions the Byford Dolphin incident, which was a real disaster on an oil rig in the North Sea where decompression saturation divers, the people, and he gets all of, as someone who is also a scuba diver, he gets all of the details right about the horror of these deep sea divers who are going like hundreds and hundreds of meters under the water, and like the dangers of the pressure.
Right.
Like I've had gas narcosis once, I was swimming, and I thought I was going up, but I was swimming deeper and deeper into the water.
Yikes.
God.
And I thought
That's a
that
nightmare.
the surface was beneath all of the black. That's how down I was.
Oh dear.
And he gets that so precise here with an even more extreme form of diving, where you are just in these fucking pressurized chambers, and he because he has this background in industrial work, it feels so real because he knows all of the correct stuff about how the compression systems work and the diving bells and the saturation bubbles you gotta say and all of that. It's crazy.
One of those 5 separated posts is solely there to get you in the atmosphere of what it is like in these areas, and it's solely just focused on that and getting you in that feeling. And again, like I said before, it's just how you feel reading this.
Yeah, adding in all of these details that make it more realistic, super hyper realistic, because it's all real detail
Right.
to the point where sometimes it's actually difficult at some points in this to go, where does the part that's not real come in? That's the kind of background you have to do if you want to insinuate people into your story and then give them something really horrifying, is they have to be in it. And this puts you into it really effectively, because not only is it detailed and realistic and believable, it's well written and presented interestingly, despite being about reality. And that's a really clever thing to be able to pull off, which Hippo always pulls off.
Yeah, that's something I really want to touch on when we get to the King Company textile plant.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
That's another one that does that incredibly.
But
Love that article.
briefly, because you included it, and because I thought it was cool, End of the World live stream by LE3. You wanted to talk about Tstaffor. You mentioned how it kind of can and how I brought it up kind of earlier, how it can be this window onto other concepts on the wiki.
Yeah, it's definitely the one on this list that has the least Parawatch. It's 2 comments and then a link to a live stream.
Yep.
But it's an example of how Parawatch can really fit in any canon.
Totally.
To be a side story that really shows you a new perspective on a story being told. Another one we're going to touch on is the Masquerade's End, where there are these tale series and canons that have kind of a set look into them, and bringing in Parawatch can really give you a new sight on it, and this does that really well. And it's also it's not on Parawatch, it's on the live stream app, but I think this one also gives that big, very great feel of that all of the commenters on Parawatch are a big community.
Oh, totally.
And are friends with each other offline, some of them at least, but or more just online friends.
Well, it's another
But
aspect
it really gives
on
that vibe.
on meta commentary on the wiki, because we have forums, and for so many years that was the primary way to communicate. But then there was IRC, and then now so much more so there's Discord and all the different various SCP themed Discords or Reddit or TikTok or whatever. And so it feels like that, where in the sense that there is this core idea where people post things, their conspiracy theories on Parawatch, and then maybe somebody that they know that also posts there is doing a live stream, and you're going to join them for it.
Yes, the whole aspect of Parawatch technically being a wiki, but there's only one tale on the entirety of the SCP Wiki website that actually is one of the articles, which is the textile plant one. Everything else is just kind of the other stuff around the actual Parawatch wiki, which is incredible.
Yes, we made a few jokes at the expense of that concept in an article we will briefly talk about at the end of this. Looking at this live stream one and looking at the way the rest of the Parawatches are written, it's really fun how, as a writer, you can actually get something out of the fact that you've been terminally online for the last few years when you're writing these, because Parawatches are so much. They're not easier to write in terms of the concepts, but in terms of just the hammering it out. If you've been hanging out on Discord or hanging out on Reddit or looking at people talking online or talking to people online, it is so easy to write forum post, shitpost style responses and stuff. Parawatch is almost energizing when you're writing tales. You have to write it within your prose style, and you have to make it interesting and the way that you make your individual work interesting. When you're writing an SCP, you have to write it in clinical style. And when you write Parawatch, you can write jackasses on the internet. And that is so much fun. It feels like a vacation.
Yeah, it's funny, like, I knew what Parawatch was, but I hadn't even read a single Parawatch thing until last year. Because I just sort of thought, oh, it's creepypasta. I never really liked creepypasta that much. I like the ideas of them, but I thought their execution sometimes were lacking, depending on, and not the articles here on the wiki, but like in reality, in a wider sense. And I didn't really understand how much you could play around with it. And then when I finally sat down to try and figure out how to do it myself, it was like, God, this is such a phenomenal tool. And it's such a phenomenal tool in the tool belt of an SCP writer. Like, you can do so much stuff you couldn't do anywhere else.
And they're so much more accessible.
Yes,
that's the thing too.
Yeah.
I'm sure we all read or watch videos or whatever on the internet while we're eating or while we're writing or listening to music or whatever. Stuff that's like this, that's people just talking in bite sizes about real world things, even though these aren't real world, is the kind of thing you can do when you aren't totally mentally engaged, as opposed to picking up a story that's totally in universe, it's totally within the prose, and it's got an omniscient narrator, and you have to focus on the narrative. That can have a harder bar to clear for entering, whereas this stuff is written like forum posts, which means not only is it more accessible to the writer, it's more accessible to the reader that can just pick this up and go, oh, this is just like reading a thread on Reddit, only it's also a story. And I think that's part of the reason why the only things you can write that will get extremely high reviews quickly on the SCP Wiki, other than SCPs, are Wilson's wildlife entries or Parawatch entries. Because everybody loves cute animals, that's the Wilson's.
Yeah.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
Everyone loves it.
So one of the recommendations that we got from Twitter was Scared Stiff by Obo Band Geek, who I've mentioned before. Obo Band Geek is like ridiculously underrated and has like I don't know exactly how many articles they've done, but this is not the first one where I picked it up and been like, how is this so low? It's so great.
Yeah, this is a great article.
Tower B, when you asked me for like my list of my favorite Parawatch stuff, I mentioned Tower B being my favorite creepypasta, but I hadn't read Scared Stiff, and Tower B is still my favorite, but this is a very, very close second. I absolutely adore it.
Yeah, I didn't know it existed before it got recommended to me either, and I think it's fucking great.
I read this long ago, but when I just binged the entire Parawatch list, and it kind of, I'll be honest, it kind of got lost in like the mash of like a million different things. I think it's very good, but personally, it just kind of got stuck in the back of my head until I went to reread it for this podcast. It's so good.
That is a thing I will say about if you read like 3 or 4 Parawatches in a row, that can happen. Like, I feel like I have started to binge it and then realized I need to not do this. I need to read them in like little chunks, because otherwise they're gonna merge together in some ways.
So before we like fully explain the like premise of this one, I just want to mention how this is, I think, the only one I found that's a creepypasta really kind of, I mean, it's all written by Obo Bandgeek, but in fiction it's co-written by 4 posters. It's Wander Nameless, So Spooky, Katie Didn't, and Whomst Will You Call? And it's kind of like this small little group chat between the 4 of them as they all collectively remember the book series.
Yeah, group chat's a good way to look at it, because normally when it's somebody who starts the post, they get nested inwards, but none of these are nested. They're all completely equivalent in the indenting, which does make it look like a group chat. That's a good way to think about it.
Yeah, it is absolutely pretty clearly 4 people like comparing their thought process to each other, and their memories, and much like I-Man and sort of the way Gump is and sort of the way Candle Cove is, it's people talking about these childhood memories. And I mean, that's something that can easily come up a lot in these sorts of stories, but this one does it so fucking well because it's about these series of 90s horror novels that were aimed at kids, which used to be a thing, which is pretty funny to me that used to exist, called Fear Street, or Scary Stories to Tell in the Dark, or Goosebumps, right.
Yeah, the most popular.
And it's just crazy to me that this used to be a thing that I grew up, obsessed with, especially Goosebumps and Fear Street. And here's a group of people that maybe think that this series never existed, but they have memories of it, and it turns into this like serious investigation on their part, which is fun because a lot of the Parawatch articles, ostensibly the Parawatch's goal is to go out and document the rooms, but a lot of times it's just a creepypasta, or it's a bunch of different forum posts kind of like picking fun at each other or whatever. And this one really does feel like 4 people trying to get to the bottom of something.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely like 4 people working together to solve a mystery,
which is fucking cool. And basically the idea is that this is a series of novels that are all they're like an anthology because each novel is kind of a different story, but somewhere in the novel there will be a man dressed in gray who's looking for somebody named Blackthorn. And if you were to sit down and look at all the different novels, you would notice them as they progressively got published. This individual would become progressively more and more desperate to find the Blackthorn person.
And it's like the novels are described in the text as like a riff on Goosebumps, or a similar young adult short horror anthology series of that sense, that are just kind of pumped out. And there's something sort of Stephen King-ish about the man in the novels looking for the author. But it's very much in that sense of like children's horror and riffing on that.
So this is one that I just want to absolutely gush about, but the problem is it's all spoiler talk. And so I will hold myself from doing that, but I just have to say, after like the 5th or so mention of Blackthorn, I called it. I actually did think out loud. I like said aloud to no one in my empty room when reading it, this is totally blank, and I called it.
Yeah,
I also theorized that the gray-suited guy was nobody, which no, but I got to one.
I actually did too. I genuinely thought this was a crossover until we get further into it. But this is also. One...
I mean, it's like a backdoor, like featured tale for this, which is really fun.
This is also another one that feeds into what we talked about much earlier about some, taking a look at the fact that. The account was hacked and like, oh, all that stuff is all bullshit and don't worry about it, or whatever. And it's so clearly somebody stepping in, either somebody from the Foundation stepping in to cover it all up, or something anomalous is happening to make them, feel like, oh, well, none of the stuff I just posted for the last week has been from me. And I mean, I kind of used the same kind of thing. Different, but I feel like that's a common fun idea about it. But yeah, I don't want to give away too much about this because it is really just a mystery from the get-go. With each new post, you get like a little bit more. Somebody else comes in and says, "Oh, well, I found this, and I found the people that published the books," and then it's so good.
Like one of them actually like takes a trip across country to like visit their grandparents and stuff.
It feels like
to look in their attic to find books.
It feels like an ARG or something. Like when we watch these videos, and I've never really paid attention to ARGs as they happen. I've always waited until they've kind of collated into like something more digestible, and then I've just like binged through them, and it's always about like 3 or 4 people or less, whatever, like going about trying to figure out something, and then like doing these little check-ins with their video audience, and it feels so much like that. Yeah. I love it.
The other thing that I think is interesting about this one is this sense of maybe it's real, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It constantly is going back and forth on that.
Comes back with a vengeance at the end. Yeah.
Right. Not to spoil or anything, but like that playing around with, is it supernatural? Because it feints towards a recognizable article that people are going to like it references something people will get, but then it pulls it back a little bit and maybe goes, I don't know. You decide. Yeah. And I really love that. I love that.
Both in and out of universe, because there are posts where they're like, actually, we found the people that published it. It seems like that's totally normal. It's so great because it feels like they're doing this actual, and what's reality is, outside of fiction, investigations are filled with dead ends, and they're, not that there's a dead end specifically here, but that there are parts where you'll be like, I don't know, it seems like this is really weird, and then you find out more details about it, and you go, oh, actually, I guess it wasn't that, it was a false lead or whatever, and there's lots of moments like that here.
A show I just recently watched that's absolutely incredible, and I also recommend people go watch it, is Only Murders in the Building, which is created by Steve Martin and Martin Short and Selena Gomez. And this gave me like big vibes to that show, where it's like this group of kind of ordinary folks really wanting to have that great mystery solving, and they get to have it here. they get to solve this mystery.
Yes, they do. Sort of.
Sort of.
Maybe it's all four of them. Yeah, so you, Stonefish, you brought up SCP-3840. We stand on guard for thee, and we have two Canadians here.
Yeah, what's that a reference to, Grigori?
I don't know.
You don't know? How do you not know yet?
I'm joking. It's
the
the fucking national anthem. Calm down.
It's the Canadian national anthem. It's the Canadian national
It's your
anthem.
canon. That's what it's a reference to.
Yeah, it's a reference to my canon several years before I joined the Wiki.
That's the weird thing.
By somebody who probably has never seen an article in my canon.
Fun fact, Harry Blank wrote the Canadian national anthem. They don't tell you that in Canadian schools.
Yes, but only the original French version.
Okay.
Exactly. On Guard 43 is, of course,
a
reference.
Canada. Thank you very much.
Yeah, people don't know this, but the Canadian national anthem is derived from
On Guard 43.
Site 43.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's technically CC.
It's technically.
The national anthem.
Well,
There you go.
So, Parawatch, this is the one where Parawatch was invented. It's it's about a Parawatch user in Canada going into the Spray Valley Provincial Park in Alberta. And Parawatch is really just a throwaway reference to set up that this is a conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, a big thing with a lot of groups of interests, like creation, is they start out as just like a throwaway line because someone needed an explanation for something, and then someone else really loving that throwaway line and creating a whole thing with it.
To the point where that's what we tell people to do when they want to make a GOI now, is use it as a throwaway a few times.
Yeah,
because it works.
A couple times.
Because it works.
I have in 5846. Hint, hint. Ooh.
But a Parawatch is kind of a feint here to discuss what I can only describe as a surreal Canadian far-right Canadian murder monster.
Yes.
Like Canadian nationalism murder monster.
Yes. Which is what it is.
Right, exactly. But it's so interesting how it just different it is from the Parawatch that came later, yet still being so good.
Well, and also it fits, because like I said earlier, it's so fucking malleable that you could tell a story that tells you every single little aspect of things, and it would fit perfectly with Parawatch. You could tell a story like the opening bit that Tstaffor read, where it tells us almost nothing. It could be, a big old-fashioned creepypasta like Hippo has done multiple times. It's such a malleable, and we call it GOI, but like it's almost just like its own setting or thematic, boundary within the wiki. It's so good.
Yeah. Then there's 3840, which actually gives you a lot of detail, and almost all of it makes you more confused than before you got it.
Exactly.
The series of vignettes is so good.
Series of vignettes that just get progressively crazier.
They're so fucking fun because the concept is there is this person, like we already mentioned, who is a Parawatch, quote unquote, investigator, who gets lost and found by the SCP Foundation, and along with them, even though there clearly was other people, and now maybe who knows what happened to them, there's like a cell phone, which has little snippets of video that someone has taken along. It's like 2 weeks that she's out in the that Mercier is out in the woods. I think it's like 2 weeks or 6 weeks.
It's about 2 weeks. 2 weeks or so. Yeah.
And we just get these little snippets, and it's like a found footage horror movie told through, little logs in the SCP file. It's fucking genius.
This is not related to Parawatch, but I did want to ask the two Canadians, is this a good Canadian article? in your
Yes.
opinion?
Yes, it's
I'd say so.
inexplicable and weird, and that's part of
That's the Canadian experience.
The existence of Canada is already inexplicable and weird, so that's an
Right.
A+. Sorry, I didn't mean to step on you there. Did I step too hard? Are you alive?
No, you're fine.
The other Canadian didn't actually respond.
I said I think so, which is a response.
Oh, okay. I didn't hear you.
That
because I
is
was too busy
technically
hearing
a
the sound of my
response.
own voice. Yes, that was the most any Canadian will commit to anything. So.
Fair enough.
I think so. That's actually what you check on your voter card when you vote. Next to each person, it says "I think so" or "I don't think so."
It's I think so. Or, maybe not.
Maybe next time. I don't want you to feel bad, but not this election. cycle.
Instead of no, it's ooh, I don't know.
It's it's either A or eh.
I think what's interesting to me about this article is the deep ambivalence about it. Not necessarily like going beyond confusion or not knowing what's going on. There's an ambivalence to the tone of it.
Oh yes, big time.
Yes.
To
They're,
the
like
the-
the descriptions of what's happening are very like crazy and outlandish, and then like the little lines that cut in of the actual people filming and stuff, what they actually say is just so casual.
Mercier does
Like-
not appear
like
to
someone
be
is
responding
holding
correctly. Yeah.
Someone like gets shot or like pulled into the darkness, and they say, "Could you keep it down in there? You're going to get the ranger."
Yeah, the responses don't seem at all proportionate to what's happening, and that's brilliant.
And it goes throughout because it goes into the fucking ending note. Not the note,
Yeah,
but
it makes
the
it right
end-
into the interview,
Right
yeah.
into the interview because I want to read. And this is gonna sound like it's a spoiler, but it's fucking not because it doesn't explain anything. Just the last 4 lines of the fucking interview, which is fucking incredible. I love it so much.
amazing writing.
Mercier face palms, then hits her hand on the table. Don't you get it? Coughing. Don't you? Mercier starts profusely coughing and gasping for air until a burnt phone battery is ejected from her mouth, which collides with the ceiling and lands on the table. Mercier, still coughing. Get it? Don't you get it? People have to sacrifice for their country. If you can't handle that, then you don't deserve protection. End of interview. End of interview. Like,
Everything's been explained.
it's just so fucking... it's so good. I'm jealous as fuck of this interview.
Oh my god, there are a few people on the wiki, as someone who writes pretty much exclusively existential surrealism, there are a few people on the wiki I am insanely jealous of. Nat, who's not writing anymore, Rat King, and Famine.
Yeah, I was gonna say, if you don't include
yeah.
Famine Pulse in this list, we're gonna have words.
This has big Famine Pulse.
Absolutely.
Totally does. Absolutely does.
Absolutely.
If you've never read, to the audience out there, if you've never read a Famine Pulse article, do yourself a favor and read a Famine Pulse article. Any Famine Pulse article, you will find your new favorite author. I guarantee it.
Yeah, maybe don't start with Worry Worry.
I would not also... I would agree.
I
don't-
love
yeah,
Worry
but
Worry, but it's like...
I would start with Worry Worry.
I think Worry Worry is like an accomplishment on the wiki. It's so incredible.
I think that was my first Famine Pulse.
Really?
article.
Rat King and Famine Pulse did a collaboration not long ago with
Oh,
the
God.
Andrew...
That's also...
It's the Andrew zine, right? It's Andrew?
It's the
No,
Eric
it's
scene.
Eric's magazine.
Eric.
It's
sorry.
so good.
It's amazing.
The Eric character, who, I mean, his personality is like the Michael the
Yes,
Killer person. Is like a little kid making a great little comic, not comic, a magazine with like all of his favorite things.
There's
in it.
so many little
it's
bits
so good.
in Eric's zine where you go, wait, what the fuck?
The whole book is it's an illustrated in Pastor Asta style zine. It's a magazine with all of these disjointed little SCP related things, and it's just so much fun to read because it's simultaneously brilliantly hilarious and so deeply upsetting.
Yeah, there are just so
and
many
so much
moments
packed
where you'll
into
be
every
reading
page, and then so many pages.
Yeah.
Yes.
And you're rereading it, and they'll be going to this part, and then there'll be just a single line or like a couple lines that'll just like throw you against the wall metaphorically and go like, what the fuck am I reading? Ugh, famine. So good.
Famine.
Anyway, what were we doing?
Yeah, I included
another
King Company textile plant.
Another thing I wanted to say about
Oh, yes.
3840 is you can tell by the theme of the page and stuff when you open it up. It's got great non-binary representation with the main character, the serial Mercier, being non-binary, because like when it says like the burnt phone battery is ejected from their mouth and
Oh,
stuff.
yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
So then,
Yeah, huzzah.
then
It's good.
I made a mistake and I gendered them. Excuse me.
It's pretty cool to have an early article like that has that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't expect it from Series 4. I thought that was definitely more later stuff.
Good stuff.
But yeah, let's keep going. King Company textile plant, which is by our friend Ip, and it is
The one actual
right.
UI form.
Yeah,
The only wiki article that the Parawatch wiki is. There might be another one in here somewhere, but
I don't. Yeah, maybe. This is
the only one I've ever
Yeah,
seen.
me
This is
too.
also my first Parawatch article.
It was 100% my first. Yeah.
Because I think Ip actually gave it to me to proofread.
Yeah. Me too.
But I didn't get credit, so maybe not. Just looking at his author post. He forgot me. Didn't forget you, I noticed. He just forgot me.
But this one is so straight-laced in the way that a Hippo article is, except for it's from a completely different perspective, because this reads so much like a Wikipedia article about a significant historical event that you have to like genuinely take out like your like mental like magnifying glass to like see where the weird shit like slips in.
Yeah.
I have a full-on, very shameful confession. I didn't see the author name at the beginning, and I thought the comments by the author, this was actually written by some SCP wiki user, Flava Flavino. I literally thought those were actual author notes.
That's beautiful.
Oh, that's good. Yeah, because it ends with this really fucking like interesting. It feels like an out of universe like commentary. At
I
the
thought
end.
someone was writing
Yeah.
about this weird clock they found. I thought they were making an article based
Look
on
at this jackass wrote a Parawatch and then put their comments on the author at the end of the article. What an idiot. That's what the author post is for. Jeez.
I mean, and that just speaks to how fucking believable it is, honestly. Like, because it feels like there's lots of. I mean, he had to explain it to me at the end because, like, I was like, this just feels so fucking real. I know weird shit just happened, but I'm kind of lost as to what it means. And it's probably like what I'm not gonna say what it references, but it references another GOI, and I swear to God, it's one of the only things that references that GOI I like.
It's a good reference that you might not immediately
Right.
catch.
Yeah,
But
the only like overt anomalous stuff talked about is in like the quote from Jacob Schreiner or whatever. So like, there's nothing actually like explicitly stated.
But then that
besides
quote
in his,
makes
like,
you go
weird, crazy quote.
Well, what else? You know, like it's a subtle way of saying, "Hey, look at all the other events that we've just talked about," and
Yeah,
whether or not this was a real world thing or not.
it's a long biography. It's actually not a very large, not an extremely long article because most Parawatches aren't. But it's a detailed biography of a textile plant, as the title suggests, and it's as a horror article. It's about the horror of industrial time,
Right.
About the regulation of human beings' lives in early industry and in industry today.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
That was,
So it takes something that's horrifying in the real world and also makes it anomalously horrifying, which is a good trick. You could take something that's already scary and make it scarier.
Something else that like Ip did with it, which is so like really interesting, is there's a bunch of like the general like every Wikipedia article, anytime they like state a thing, they have like references to where this actually is proved that it's true, with like little numbers and stuff. But this one actually includes stuff that is probably not true and still put in the article, and then like in universe has little like, I'm calling you out on this, like it, to quote, a sub basement is believed to still exist, and then a little footnote, by whom?
Yes, there's the citation needed, and yeah.
It's so good. But yeah,
I would just recommend reading that.
yeah,
article
I don't want to
because
say
it's
much
fantastic.
more about it.
And it's also way, way, way badly, horrifically, criminally low rated
Yeah.
for what it should be.
Oh no, I mean,
know.
I think part of what's causing that low rating is the fact that it is this historical horror. There are other Parawatch articles that are low rated. Pepper's Ghost has one that's also it's about an abandoned school or an orphanage. Also criminally low rated. But I think there's something about like sepia photographs and like detailed historical events that is not quite as appealing as to maybe broader offsite readers as like, oh, here's a type of creepypasta obsessed kid we all know. Yeah. Which is a shame, because Parawatch is malleable enough to do a textile factory in Saltville, New York, a boy with a fish hook in his mouth, a far-right Canadian monster, and a creepypasta obsessed kid. And they can all work in such a way that they feel part of the same whole, in a way that not a lot of other GOIs on the site can.
Totally.
Yeah, it's the most... I mean, it like you said from the very beginning, it is a meta-commentary on the wiki itself. And, you know, it doesn't have to be, but its very nature is. And so you can use it to talk about just about goddamn anything, which is impressive.
Yep.
And then, look at this one. It's Real, I Swear, by Harry Blank.
Oh, this is the one you mentioned
This
earlier.
is the accidental knockoff. Michael the Killer.
It.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a knockoff.
It isn't really. It's a variation on a theme. They're both totally different articles on a similar sort of idea.
I love this one. This is one of my favorite Parawatches, and I'm glad I get to say that to you. No, seriously.
See, now I don't even think I can talk to you about this. You have such obviously repellent taste.
I think, I mean, it's a really like Michael the Killer is a specific type, but this is such a specific emotion, just like online vitriol, the need to like. When you want to reach through the computer screen and just be like, what the fuck are you talking about? To like other people when they're being dumbasses.
Yes,
and,
this is about someone who can reach through the screen and strangle you for real, in a sense.
For real. And how horrifying that impulse is.
Yes.
Like, and I genuinely think it's one of my favorite Parawatches, and it's one of the like my favorite looks at that in media, because it's not too smug about like online hate in that sense. It's very matter of fact, and it's very chilling because of that.
Well, thank you.
It's also got a fucking brilliant fake out, because it you jokingly call this a knockoff because it starts off kind of along the same lines as Michael the Killer, but you go in a very different direction. Very quick. Not quickly, but like it happens and then you go, wait, what's happening? And then by the end, it's so fucking chilling what this article's actually about, and I fucking love it.
See, I hadn't read enough Parawatches. That's why. If I'd read Michael the Killer, I wouldn't have written this.
Well,
so I'm glad I didn't. Go ahead.
Well, now you can do Michael the Killer and Rayfire Rose face off.
Somebody mentions that in the comments. Even,
right. An immovable force meets, like, what is it? It's like an unstoppable force meets an immovable object.
Yes.
Yeah.
An immovable force
meets an unstoppable object. I think that's actually more accurate. Yeah. It's an immovable force meets an unstoppable object. Yeah.
That is totally way more accurate. Rayfire Rose is an immovable force.
Is an immovable force, and Michael the Killer is an unstoppable object. It's
What were you starting to say there, Tstaffor?
The content warning is no joke. Shout out to like actually having content warnings for some SCPs, because I appreciate them.
Yeah, I'm not sure I even put that on there at the start, but I think I had one person read this and like, you just correctly described an anxiety attack in such a way as to give somebody, and I'm like, oh yeah, I don't want to kill anybody.
I mean, I have them pretty commonly. Like I have a good like 4 a week right now, and this did legitimately give me one. This is successful in Rayfire Rose's attempt.
You asked me if it was actually going to hurt you, and I said no, I don't think it would, didn't I? So I'm sorry if I did that.
No, it's cool.
Yeah, so
nobody
read
with that
this
content
article.
warning, I would legitimately not have read this if it wasn't for like the Parawatch podcast we're doing. But I push myself. It's fine.
Good.
But
Grigori
it's
gets
a very
people on
good
here
article at what it's trying to do.
and come and be a co-host on our podcast, and we'll subject you to
We'll
abuse.
fucking traumatize you. I mean, that's
Sorry.
what we did to Aiko for like 2 hours, but that was mostly just mocking her the entire time.
Aiko is just a walking ball of abusing other people.
Yeah, that's basically all she does on our podcast that we co-host. We just bring people on to bully
She's
them.
good at it.
She is. It's true. All right. Oh, there it is. There's the Coke.
Grip it and rip it, baby. Grip it and rip it. Yeah.
So I don't know who recommended Higher Minds by Jay Dune. I might have just picked it out of the
That
list.
was
Okay,
me.
good.
Higher Minds is the best one where the Foundation intersects with Parawatch, where
Yes,
it's
yes.
it's a similar story of like I think it's the best look at a real thing that we know in the wiki, not real thing, but like a thing we know in the wiki we've seen before, seen from the outside.
100%.
It's another, and it's the fact that it ends with like the old. What the fuck you talking about? You're an idiot. is so spot on. I don't even. This isn't even really one that like you can spoil.
No, it's about the experience
so much.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because
Pastarasta actually got a second alternate name character in one of these because one of the people who says like, "Oh, that's a great made-up story," is Ratkin.
and the other one is J. Karl. Get it?
Yeah.
But I love this one because it's almost like a parody of those hippo-style Parawatches, where it's just like a spooky story told in like 3 broken up
Right.
posts, and then at the end it swerves into like, nope, this is something you know, and also the other users of this forum hate it. So, yeah, you've been tricked. It is basically like a Shaggy Dog story
absolutely
in that sense,
Yeah.
but it's a very good
totally.
one.
Because it's, without giving away too much, and I agree that it isn't really something you can like fully spoil because it's the way that you get there, but it is talking about this perspective of children in a gifted and talented, but they call it talented and gifted program, where you're pulled out of class and you're sort of put into these smaller classrooms and you go through more extreme testing and whatever, only it's taken to this very logical extreme where maybe something strange is happening behind it, and you're right, it does feel like a traditional creepypasta until you start to realize, oh shit, this is talking about stuff we genuinely are very familiar with on the wiki, and playing with like how maybe the Foundation messes with people's understanding of events. It's really good.
I love like the gifted program test that they're all given, where like the questions are like 4 similar circles asking to find the square, a string of random numbers with a blank box beneath for us to write down which ones stood out to us.
It really sounds like the stories that you hear about when people were doing parapsychology studies in the 70s and 80s.
It does absolutely sound like that. Something else I just want to quickly call out this one because it has what's probably the first example of Jay Dune scribbling on a piece of paper and posting it to the internet, where he scribbled out a certain sigil on a piece of paper with a pencil, and he's taken that picture and put it in his article. And these days he's becoming an artist, and he's drawing lots of pictures of anime women and posting them on Twitter.
Yeah,
so you can go
that incredible,
enjoy that.
amazing artist depiction of that ghost girl.
That was beautiful.
So highly detailed.
That was beautiful.
I love when
Sarcasm
people
aside,
upload-
Dune actually is starting
No,
to actually draw,
it's great.
and it looks really
Yeah,
good.
it does.
I love when people upload scribbles to the wiki, like as part of articles, like diegetic scribbles that are like on a piece of paper with something cruddy. I think there's also one in Michael the Killer. There is
Yes.
a one in Michael the Killer.
Pastarasta's done that a bunch.
Amazing. That is one of my favorite wiki image things. It's just like weird, clearly on paper, clearly in pencil doodles. Love those.
I played around.
Something else I wanted to bring up about this article is images, because a trap that I find myself falling into quite a lot is writing an article and having like a idea of a perfect picture that'll fit it, and searching for a CC one that fits that, and having like really specific criteria for what I want in it. And sometimes just a general picture can be perfect if you put it around the right context. Like, for instance, like this one has just like a random picture of a schoolroom, but here the description of like the room and how he was sent into it, and it's the Higher Minds Elementary School room, can give so much more context to just a very generic image to make it really fit in the article.
Definitely.
Yeah, and I don't know if this would work for you or not, but in like effort of like avoiding that trap, I have started having very general thoughts about what I want something to look like, and then I look for pictures before or during writing, and then I use those pictures to then inform what the details of what I'm writing.
I do that a lot too, and I think Dune probably does, because you probably noticed if you've seen enough of Dune's articles, they've usually got a really nice banner image at the top that's really high quality, and he's also started to, when he wants to do ridiculous ones, he'll doodle something out. But it's also how making art can be a weird little gateway, because he's doing these scribbles, and he's done that ghost scribble on his recent article, Maddie, which took off like crazy. But that one's almost making fun of himself, because he's actually started drawing for real now, because he's enjoying drawing, and he's coming a long way. So even just making shitposting art can eventually turn into actually making art, which is a nice
Jesus,
touch.
not to bring up Victim again, but that was exactly what happened. You taught me how to do like the most simplistic fucking photo editing, and I made a joke, and it's still a joke, on the Victim hub, saying that they're the masters of graphic design because I was bad at it. And then now I have to go back and make things slightly worse because I've learned how to do it fairly well. And I have to, and then people will ask, oh my god.
The beast is back.
My brother entered the room and startled the hell out of me. This is some figure standing there in the dark breathing.
This is a true horror episode, isn't it?
Jump scares at... Hey guys, watch out. Jump scare at an hour and 50 minutes in.
Ridiculous.
We need a content warning on this one.
God. Well,
okay, thank you. Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right, so...
Okay. It's okay. Good night.
That's the perfect way, if you want to like move on to another article, just scream really, really loud.
That's right. Just kill any flow in the conversation.
I'm sorry about that. I just like...
It's fucking hilarious. Don't be worried.
That's staying, don't worry.
You know when someone's watching you in the dark and you just turn and there's like a person there, it's like, holy fuck, Okay, sorry. It's my roommate. Okay, alright, okay. Where were we?
We're gonna move on to Masquerade's End.
Nobody knows.
Sorry for jump scaring.
It's fine.
Oh god.
So, Stonefish, you included Masquerade's End, and I really like it.
Yeah.
It's an example of Nico, which I feel like we haven't put Nico stuff at the forefront in enough episodes, honestly. And this is like
that will change.
Yeah, that'll change. Yeah, definitely. This is like a view onto the Broken Masquerade from Parawatch's perspective.
Yeah.
Yet again, another example of like being a great other different perspective for a tale series.
Totally.
Definitely.
Go ahead.
No, I was about to say
no.
No, I refuse.
I
Figure
will
it out.
not. We're going backward. We're going to talk about King Textile.
The rest of this episode is this is now a King Textile fan podcast. This is a fan only about King Textile. Every episode King Textile. So this is one where it is just like so deep in with the references that it's like understanding Parawatch as like a forum, as opposed to just like, and we've covered this already, it's a little, like, my thoughts on it have sort of been covered by a bunch of other stuff we've talked about, but like, this is the nugget of why I like Broken Masquerade. It's maybe my favorite Broken Masquerade article, where like, the Foundation gets revealed, now we all know what it is. We still don't know all the secrets they get up to, but we know that they are real, and because it is what these people would think of it. You know, like, who the fuck is, to quote a little bit, edit, oh my fucking god, the entire country is gone. Edit, who the fuck is SCP? Edit, what the fuck? Edit, why is nobody talking about this?
That's so beautiful. The idea that they went for years with their conspiracy website, they never found the conspiracy. It's just
exactly.
Also, you left off the best. You left off the best bit, which is edit 5. Sorry, I didn't notice there was a.
There was a mega threat, right? Yeah, exactly.
Oh my god! And then people thinking that it's like the end of the fucking world. See you all in the next life. You were excellent. My boyfriend and I are going into our bunker. Wish you the best.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just like full-on overreacting conspiracy
North
theories.
Korea disappearing was your trigger for the end of the world.
I mean, it's pretty fucking weird.
Another incredible thing.
If any
in this,
country was going to disappear.
The forum aspect of it, you have like sponsored content ads periodically, like Spicy Crust Pizzeria or spam little ads.
I love the little spam. The spam one is funny. Spicy Crust Pizzeria, I can take or leave, like as a concept. The 001, the On Guard 43001, about those sorts of things, changed my view of those. Harry, did you write that?
Yeah, that was me and Ip.
Yeah, you guys really
Ip
changed my. You two really changed my perspective on it. I can still take them or leave them. The spam one.
Me, myself, or it. I had to get that in. I'm sorry.
Me, myself. That's good. The spam ad makes me chuckle.
The thing that makes me chuckle so much.
Photo of spam.
The thing that makes me chuckle so much about this one is in the same message you were just talking about, where it says, what the fuck, who the fuck is SCP, is the image, which is like
Ron Paul.
Ron Paul, like in a negative, but like a red tinged negative, like blacked out almost entirely, so that all you see is the outlines, and then it says it's happening, and then the caption is it's happening.
I love the caption is the same as the caption.
It's so ridiculous.
The thing about the
one-
Spicy Crust Pizzeria one, though, I really like that because that is an SCP front company. An SCP front company is advertising on Parawatch before the Broken
That's
Masquerade.
right. It's very, and then
That's really funny.
And right before
the balls.
right before the user Cetacean Hussbuster.
Cetacean Hussbuster. Does anybody know what that's a reference to?
Get it? Wink, wink, wink. Just this one is so deep with jokes and like bits and one-liners, and then between them, the most satisfying stuff from the Broken Mask. It's just like when they're speculating might be South Korean, you get this like, like feeling of like, yes, because you know all of the lore, and there's something so satisfying about seeing people who are not in on it piecing it together.
Yes.
Or the fact that the SCP Foundation isn't the first big group of interest. Well, the Foundation isn't a group of interest, but still, like, big corporation that they talk about. They actually bring up the UIU and the GOC, I think, before that. They're like, well, the UIU actually mentioned that there's another competing place called this Foundation or whatever.
Right.
Yep.
Well,
I think it's
and
hilarious, which I didn't know about because I hadn't read this one before, is that, and I don't know if this is canon or not, but in the Broken Masquerade, the GOC outed the SCP.
Yeah, that's what it. That's
and
what
I did legitimately the entire opposite thing in Vanguard without knowing it.
Yeah, which is good because we need to do
right.
the
But I
opposite
just think
thing,
it's
because otherwise we're
Vanguard outed GOC, which is fucking hilarious to me. I had no fucking idea. But anyway,
you mean you planned it from the start to be clever?
Yeah,
that's right.
Yeah.
Well
and
done.
I love the final punchline.
Oh, the punchline is so fucking good.
I think you can even sort of talk about it because like this whole thing is basically just one long punchline. So may I spoil the punchline?
Spoil it.
Where the I will. where the serpent's hand is like, "Hi, welcome to the anomalous world," and they just banned. No, they're gonna put him in the same fucking category as the person going, "Oh, I'm scared. Oh, what's happening?" You know.
That's so good.
I also
I'm
like
the
right in the
serpent's
center
hand.
of-
I'm sure you have questions, so ask me anything. User was banned for this post.
And, like, right in the center of all, like, the thread locks, since there's a mega thread or whatever, there's also Rex Ackles. Hi, I'm new to this forum. My name is Rex. It's nice to meet you all. I really like creepypastas, and I'm excited to learn about the real ones.
Well, okay.
Some, look, innocent kid.
Stonefish was talking about how cool it is that you know all the lore and you get all the references and all that thing. This post here is possibly my favorite part of the whole article because it works in two different ways depending on what you know. Because if you don't know, if you haven't read a ton of Uncle Nicolini's stuff, you read this and you think what it looks like at first. And I thought it was what you thought it was. Some completely clueless dildo showing up in the middle of the conversation going like, "Hi, I'm new to Parawatch," but totally unaware that North Korea has just disappeared.
Yeah. Isn't it that, like, that... I think I know what you're talking about.
But the username is Rex Alces, which
Yes.
is Rex Atlas's author avatar. This is an employee of the SCP Foundation.
Yes, it's
and
so
they're
good.
going to they're going on Parawatch right now because the shit's hit the fan, and they're going to try to manage the event. So it
Holy
reads
shit.
totally differently if you know that. And
Holy
it reads,
shit!
but both interpretations are cool. So
That's... See, I haven't done a deep dive into Nico's stuff. Whoa, that blew my mind.
like
That's...
I really like it because I read all of Nico's stuff set at Site 55, which is where Rex and Dr. Everwood, Nico's author avatar, live. And I saw that. I read the whole post first and thought that it was some person who didn't know what was going on, and I got that impression and enjoyed it. And then I read the name, and then I enjoyed it again.
Wow. Wow.
So yeah, there's a lot of really great.
Well, there's
details in
also
this
a lot
article.
of like authors and wiki people that
yeah.
are referenced here. Like, and we're not going to just list them all off, but
Yeah, but there's Dolphin Slugchugger, and there's Taylor Ricken, there's all kinds of people.
yeah, it's so fucking funny. Like, and you know, and like you said, it's so sincere in moments. There are all these little moments where you go, "Oh, this is the best part about, you know, using Parawatch to give a view on something, especially the Broken Masquerade, because it is just the ground level view of like how would these people might react if they finally found out, hey, everything, it's real, you know."
It's debatable, but it looks like Rat King also got a
Yes,
third.
I'm pretty sure.
Yes!
Pretty sure he did.
Yeah.
I love the headcanon that in the SCP universe, the Parawatch forum is just populated with a bunch of clones of Rat King.
There's like 50 of them.
Is it
50 of them.
Isn't the user from Substation 9 also one of these posters? Because Cthulhu Hoop, isn't that the same poster?
Yeah.
That's the opening poster
Yeah.
for. Yep. That
Yes.
is. Yep.
That's so good. Guys, this is great. Anyway,
I also really like that username, Cthulhu
it's
Hoop.
very good.
Me, I want Cthulhu Hoop.
Speaking of Substation 9, and because we are deep into this fucking episode and we gotta get out of here at some point.
We are.
Substation 9 is another one by Great Hippo and is my personal favorite of these that we've talked about.
It's beautiful.
It's incredible. It is very mundane and in a very real life sort of feeling, just like Tower B, in this breakdown of this rather shitty job that is going to basements in the woods. No, for real. Literally, there are basements in the woods because of all these different electrical substations that stretch for miles under untouched land that constantly are getting flooded because of bad sump pumps and stories of people that like disappeared in there and whatever, and just in this very normal industrial horror sort of way. And it uses, just like there is no Site number 5, there or Site number 5. There is wonderful videos in here that are just fucking hippo wandering around creepy basements. That's all the video is, and yet it's so fucking effective.
That's all they need to
Yeah,
be.
it's so effective.
Yeah. No video editing needed.
Yep.
No actors. It's just pure real places and pure atmosphere.
Like, one of them is just as simple as, you want to know why you have to bring 2 flashlights down here? Here's why. Play this video. You see how dark it is? That's how dark it is without one flashlight. And what if one of your flashlights broke and you just are suddenly transported to the idea of, like, my God, what if you were down there and you didn't have any light? Like, and he actually was down there and did it all the time.
Having been in that situation where I'm trying to find, like, the perfect images for SCPs and not knowing that Hippo actually just took all of these himself, I was baffled at, like, how could he find that perfect a video about the 2 flashlights? This is incredible finds.
Yeah, in that sense, Hippo's a ringer. He comes with all of this extra ability and these extra pieces of audio visual that just elevate it. But even without it, it's brilliantly written.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, even without
this, this includes a full, like, 6.5 minute video.
Yes, it does, and that one is by far the creepiest.
This is a beautiful article. Read it if it's dark and you're by yourself.
And this is the one.
There's a storm outside.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
You're in a basement, especially if you're in a basement. This is a good article to read.
This is the one where at the end I didn't even put together the pieces. And I still thought it was just such a spooky story, just because of the setting and the tone and how he evokes it in the language used. And if you get to the end and you don't quite put the pieces together, it's okay. Go read through some of the comments and then have a whole nother experience, because you suddenly think back at the little details.
Is like 2 different articles.
Because you think back on the little details that just seem spooky for a moment, or you forgot about for another moment, and then oh fuck. Like, it's the most it's just a traditional spooky story, honestly. It's just told in this very unique fashion. Ugh, so good.
It's beautiful.
And then, and we're not trying to do it short shrift, but I just don't want to tell too much about it. But then we'll move on, and this one is mine.
Oh, who wrote this one? Who wrote? Oh, look, this one was written by some guy like Grigori Karpin and Pentagon.
This Grigori guy I think he's got a future ahead of him.
Nah, he sucks.
I wonder what his voice sounds like. I bet you he's got like a really deep, sexy radio voice.
Something else we brought up with Tower B and stuff is the way, like, without other commenters, you can still break up a creepypasta into multiple posts. And Tower B did that with a guy in a single night writing 5 different posts.
Yes.
This one has, like, 15 or more separate different posts that span from the 2nd of February to the end of March. Yeah. Like, it's over like the course of like 2 full months this guy posts all this stuff.
Yeah, because it actually has a progressing narrative. And the one that we're talking about, Substation 9, it's because there's actual progression in the narrative. And I think one of the funner things about it is how they start off much more detailed, and by the end are very clearly written in more and more stressed sort of ways. And they get
by the end of
short.
Substation 9, he's just done. Yeah, he's just like, I don't want to do this.
This is bad. I don't like it anymore.
Because it starts off with how much he loves his creepy job, and it ends up with not so much loving it.
It's so good.
Yeah, it goes from like a guy gushing about his like kind of cool job or whatever to kind of reluctantly, I guess I got to tell these people who are also now invested. I'll just quickly just let them know what's going on. Type posts.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Okay, so Dracula reference title. We're gonna do this one now.
That's right. It has nothing to do with Dracula.
Yes, the article has nothing to do with Dracula, and the title is a quotation from it.
Bees.
Is it a quotation from it?
It is, yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, you wrote this. What the fuck?
You wrote it. What do you mean?
So what? I didn't. I just named it in the Carpathians because it takes place in the Carpathians.
I thought you were just shouting at your fellow vampires.
No. There's other things about Romania other than fucking Dracula, who was...
Right, but when you think horror and you think the Carpathian Mountains...
I think of the real-world Dracula, not the story.
This is like the 30-second reference to you being a vampire, and you made the other 31 yourself.
That's so funny, though.
So in the Carpathians.
Yeah, so in the Carpathians...
So, Grigori, you wrote this article in the Carpathians. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
So Pentagon...
Was that me? Do I sound like Yogi Bear? What the fuck was that?
I wrote it as a Parawatch article. A picnic at the Carpathian Mountains.
Go ahead. Keep going.
No,
All right,
that's
Let's watch a whole episode of Yogi Bear. again.
No more bits.
So,
Yogi Bear lost episode.
Jesus Christ, I'm just going to move on at this point.
A Boo Boo Bear.
We're obviously all
We
drunk.
found a David installment. Oh, I wonder if we could get some honey.
But Yogi, there's so many bees here.
I love a honey, Boo Boo. I love the Davites. Okay, this is bad. I hate this. This is bad.
God, how the fuck do I transition from there?
Check your carbon monoxide detectors, folks.
Anyway, so
Public service announcement.
Pentagon came to me and wanted to do a story about the Department of Abnormalities, and I said no. Because I don't like the Department of Abnormalities. But I said I would consider doing it if we did it about, like, with almost no references to them, and you had to just be paying attention. And then he was like, well, then we should do it as a Parawatch thing. And oh, that's interesting. I've never done one of those. And this article, in writing this article, is the reason I wrote the Davite Hub. Because I had included the Davites a little bit in my series, but I, wanted to do a comprehensive. This was supposed to be, like so many of the Department of Abnormalities articles, was supposed to be a kind of way to, like, reference other articles. And I looked at the list of tagged articles with Davite and started looking through them and thought, wow, many of these don't have anything to fucking do with the Davites. I wish there was a hub, and then I wrote a hub, which was, much more complicated than it sounds. But this is a story of a backpacker, essentially, somebody who is overseas in Romania for school, who decides to go a bit exploring. They've done some exploring before, and they want to describe the situation. It's about a bunch of missing hikers who come back. Who are eventually found and have, really traumatic experiences that they don't really totally remember. And this is kind of implied that maybe the SCP had something to do with it. And this guy is coming in along behind and has found somebody whose memory is still relatively complete, but refuses to speak about it. But will give them sort of directions to where they found the weird thing. And, it's implied that this person is in hospital and is probably drugged out of their minds. It's just a guy, it was a very serious attempt to try and do that creepypasta thing that Great Hippo does, but with people constantly interrupting him.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's a lot of long posts by Get Lost Pro over the space of, like, a few days, almost a week. Explaining how he has, they actually, because I didn't gender them, explored this kind of a lost ravine, and it has to do with, there are some Davites, and there's some very, now that I've said it out loud, there's some very obvious references to the Department of Abnormalities, if you maybe read Romanian.
Yeah, I did read this through and not understand that, and then looking at the comments, I frantically scrolled back up and I was like, that's what that is.
But yeah, this was more of an attempt to kind of gather interest for the Davites. I mean, that was always what Pentagon wanted to do, is do a Department of Abnormalities article that called out to one of the more mysterious GOIs. He had said, well, maybe we could do it for Sarkis, and I'm like, I don't think that's necessary. I feel like the hub does a really good job of explaining all that stuff. What about the Deva instead? Because it doesn't, this article does not propose to explain anything about the Deva, but if you're paying attention...
No.
But if you're paying attention...
Right.
It does,
Yeah. The thing about the Deva, which is why I think it was a good choice for this, is... the result of SCP-140 is you get these archaeological digs, right? That are just all across Central Eurasia. And so, of course, some schmo is going to find one, like, one day, right?
Yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah.
And the way that I was like, well, okay, we could do... it's a department, of abnormalities, but what if it was just, these are all of the articles that have touched on that before have been like these abandoned things that the Foundation has no record of. Well, okay, did they find all of them? Probably not. And what if this one doesn't even have anything that interesting? Because it's really just the gate, in front of a weird temple complex and maybe a orchard. Who knows what this was? Certainly beekeepers.
The apple image is at the point that I was like, oh, this is Davite. Because I didn't have to even click on that link. I was like, or peach, sorry.
Peach is just a soft apple, if you really think about it.
What? No, it isn't.
Yes, they call them fuzzy apples in the Carpathians.
And yeah, I also did some audio editing for this, and I had a fucking blast doing it, because there's a part where somebody finds just a shit ton of bees, which
you
shout
will
out to the
you
audio
will believe
module being
a man
terribly
can be chased by bees.
uncustomizable.
terribly what?
Uncustomizable.
Uncustomizable.
The audio module is just
It's awful.
bright
Yeah,
white and is
I know.
yeah.
Well, oh well. But yeah, I had a shit ton of fun with this one because it was constantly trying not to explain shit, while also giving a lot of details, which was an interesting exercise. It was like, if you read this and you cared about the Devas, you would recognize all of it. But if you didn't know anything about the Devas, it would just be like, what the fuck is going on? Which is great.
With bees and peaches and a weird ziggurat? What's happening?
There's some sort of dude in a wooden costume, and Hog Slice shows up and starts screaming at people.
Anyway, if you enjoyed the adventures of Get Lost Pro, you can also see what they did before they probably died, and visit the bathrooms wiki.
That's right, because I used them again, and it's dated later. So
They also appear on the in memoriam list because
the human pee.
they probably didn't make
The
it.
human pee. It's different. But yeah,
So this lightning round had better be a real.
yeah.
lightning
I'm just
round.
gonna. I'm just gonna say that we have gone pretty late. So let's just list these out, and we'll include the links. But they're really fun, and people should go read them. One of them is Site 19, which is fucking hilarious. It's like a play on the Storm Site 51, Area 51 that happened a few years back. Really very clever.
By Nico.
Bathroom Wiki, which Harry organized, I contributed to, and 25? How many people contributed to that?
The Bathrooms Wiki
lot.
is an article by An Actual Crow, Deadly Bread, Dodo, Devil, Dicedron, Melody Fish Truck, Vicious Gremlin Group, Grigori Carpin, It's a Bad Idea, J Dune, Jack Dragon X, Lord XVNV, or Zunu, if you choose to use his pronunciation of his own name, Plague PJP, R4EX, Ralston, Rounderhouse, Trotsky, myself, and Gremlin Group.
Woo!
I think I said
have
Gremlin
one
Group
quick
twice, but he did a lot of work, so why not?
He did a lot of work, yeah.
I have one quick anecdote about this one I
Yes,
have to
go for
say,
it.
which is when I was getting on a plane ride, like a 6-hour plane flight, I was trying to load a
love
bunch
this
of wiki pages to read read them while I was on, and somehow the only one that successfully fully loaded was the Bathrooms Wiki. And so just to entertain myself, I spent like a good hour rereading this thing like 6 times over.
We'll just say
So I am very knowledgeable. If you want to quiz me on any username,
You
I
know the
know like
bathrooms
most
lore.
of them. I know the bathrooms lore.
since it's a lightning round, the only thing I will say about it is, no, it's not to make fun of the Backrooms Wiki. It has nothing to do with it beyond the name.
It's
Your wiki
just-
is, but yeah, no, Backrooms, you guys are cool. It wasn't to make fun of you. It's because it's a funny play on your name. That's all.
Yeah, and because of the play of the name, like the beginning section is like in some ways reminiscent, but that's it.
Yes,
Everything
but
else
that's it.
is like, we're not trying to pretend like you guys are talking about poop rooms. That was us. That's what we're doing.
That the joke is that they're not. There's also the joke right at the beginning here, which I'll just say one more thing. Before we go into the threads in the Bathrooms Wiki, it also says new wiki articles. No new articles within 24 hours. And that is the comment on the fact that the Parawatch Wiki has all of one wiki article.
My favorite thing about this in terms of like UI is that most recent threads, and you're able to like actually use it as a table of contents.
Yeah, that was part of Gremlin Group Grebo's insistence on making it actually navigable, which was very helpful.
Yeah, because otherwise it would be
it is a huge ass article. It's like 20-something thousand words long or something. It's just because it's a gigantic collaborative anthology of bathrooms related Parawatches. So go read that if you're feeling weird.
They should. I really like the Bathrooms Wiki because I do think it's fun to do collaborative articles. I contributed a small piece to a previous Parawatch collaborative article called Welcome to the Internet, Have a Look Around, Tales from Parawatch.
Oh, yeah.
Which was Nicola Aquarium's little piece. Not quite as long as Bathroom Wiki, but still fun. And I did one about a kid having recollections of like visiting like a fetish website when he was too young to understand like strange sexualities. And it's fun. I love doing like collaborative pieces of just little stories and everyone playing off each other. I'd love to write a full Parawatch one day, but in the meantime, more stuff like the Bathrooms Wiki, please. A lot of fun.
It was so much fun collaboratively, and the Parawatch format is what made it so doable, because we wrote this in several days. And it's immense.
Yeah.
It has a whole universe.
I wrote mine in like an hour. And it's not short.
Exactly.
But
no, yours is one of the longer form ones in there.
I will point out that it is Get Lost Pro at least 8 months after the events of In the Carpathians, and they also disappear at the end of this one.
Yes, in fact, they're in the in memoriam list, because the article actually ends with an in memorial list of all the users who have died, and that's just one gigantic joke on how often Parawatch goes wrong. It just says like lost in the line of Dookie, because there's so many ridiculous shit jokes in this, and then there's just this endless name of their names, which, you know what, why not? We've gone 2 hours and 20 minutes anyway. Their names are 420 ply Bath Rub? I didn't notice that one before. 420 ply Bath Rub Nereid, Blevins Dead-Eye Dick, Cope on a Rope, Crapaholic, Moderator Downstream Dancer, Farrah Fawcett. I like that one. Actually, not the film. Get Lost Bro. Grasp the Handle, Hey Watch This, I Bend, LOL Oops, Lord Zunu. Ooh, over, under, Pipe Dreams, Pissant
My favorite.
8, Pissant 9, Pissant 11, Plunge Band, PM Me Toilet Picks, Port Manitou, Put Her There, Roto Looter, Cistern Hood, Septicus, Shower Gremlins, Shitblock Holmes, Shiticus Maximus, Shit, Son of Dora, Supernova Shit, The Deadly Flush, Junior Moderator Toilet Humor, Toiletries and Pleasantries, TP Enjoyer, Ubendosaurus, and Administrator Holdout.
I love Parawatch name jokes. They're so good.
They're so much
so
fun.
good.
Parawatch is good. Write your own Parawatches. Parawatches are fun.
and include Hog Slice.
And include
Hog Slice. Look, the more Hog Slice, the better.
I'm not going to say what I did with Hog Slice in this, but I had so much fun, like, betraying like, subverting the expectation of when Hog Slice shows up. And then, just a couple more we're going to mention and we're not going to go into. Voice of Vanguard, which is by Giesma, which is sort of like Masquerade's End, only in Vanguard, because it's Vanguard's having a podcast and invites some Parawatch people on and gets to watch them as they are stupefied. And Giesma used such a funny thing to make them just like obviously racist conspiracy theorists, and it's just so funny and wonderful. And then
it's a fun article.
Dodo Devil, who is one of our favorites, Canadian House Hippo, which
is based off a real like little commercial thing from like 2007 or something.
Yes, and this is an anthology piece with a bunch of little short Canadian horror. Parawatch horror story things, and it's an anthology by one person, and it's really, really fun.
Yeah, love that one.
But we're gonna kind of get through these emails because I need to go to sleep soon.
Okay, there's also the emails.
I also need to go to sleep soon.
Yeah, there's emails.
We can do
but we can do it. We can do
There's
it.
4 of them, isn't there?
There's more than 4.
There's 6.
Well, we're just gonna read them real
seven.
fast. So Moxie says the Onoroid Collective was never a GOI I pay much attention to for whatever reason, but I appreciate the logic or lack thereof that governs it, especially in my head I was on fire. Where dreaming is akin to computer usage and identical solutions to identical problems. I just found that funny, especially what Onoroid GOI formats tend to be. You fellows seem like busy men, and not not just men, with careers and moving and whatnot. So,
I'm so
how do I am? How do you all manage a good work-life balance? Harry, how do you manage a good work-life SCP balance?
I don't, and I don't balance my bank account either because of it. I'm completely bankrupt. Please help. Oh God, my electricity's about to go off. Help! I think I'll have to leave the podcast. Goodbye.
Oh, bye. Oh no.
No, I don't. It's entirely on the SCP side of it, and I'm going to die. Next.
God. Real Surreal Sir says very excited.
You didn't even finish the last one.
That's right. I'm rushing.
It's
I'm
not.
rushing.
It's not
I
the
have to
fault
be in
of our
court at
fans.
8:30.
It's not the fault of our fans that we wouldn't shut up. We have to read their damn
Fine.
emails.
Especially given the fact that the two hosts write a lot of works and are longer than the average article. And one of them posts consistently often. Both of us do. From my POV, been too busy with personal stuff to check if this is true. Must be a lot of work, but I reckon it's a lot of fun too. It's a skill I wish I had. Oh, I take it.
We wish you the best. We wish you the best, no matter what Grigori may have just said.
I also wish you the best. Go for yourself.
Do you want me to read the next one?
Yes, go.
Real Sir. Okay, you want me to read it fast? Very excited for a Parawatch episode. As everyone who... Okay, I can't read fast. Real Sir says, very excited for a Parawatch episode. As someone who started out writing r/no-sleep creepypastas before I even knew SCP existed, I definitely have a soft spot for the kind of online internet spookery PW seems to represent. That said, I'd be lying if I said I read more than scattered pieces. I think mostly because it's hard to be motivated to read in-universe versions of general creepy web horror when it seems like one might as well read that just outside the SCP universe. The opposite of what I was arguing earlier. Maybe that's just me, and I do say it as someone who has used Parawatch as a significant plot point in one of my own recent articles. Ooh. Shout out. Hopefully this episode will, or I guess likely just has by the time you read this, explain why Parawatch goes beyond that, assuming it does. I'm sure we did. I'm sure we've achieved a great deal, because otherwise how could we have talked for 2.5 hours?
Tstaffor, you want to read from Randy?
Yeah, sure. So after the last episode, I went to the wiki to read Onoroi. It was fun. I'll keep this short and jump right to the question. This time it's about the podcast itself. When you get through GOIs, I assume you'll move on to canons. Which one do you want to talk about the most? That's all the email. Have a fantastic day.
On guard 4-3.
Colon D, capital D.
Smiley face.
I don't know what that's supposed to mean.
Yeah.
Joy. Pure joy. That's what it means.
Mine. I want to talk about mine. What else would I want to talk about? That's what the whole thing's been leading up to.
It's the long con. The longest of cons.
Yeah.
War on all fronts.
Con guard 4-3.
I want to talk about war on all fronts very badly.
I would
there
also
you go.
like to talk about War on All Fronts, considering I was one of the people who came up with the canon, and I have not written anything.
All right. Stonefish, you want to read the next one?
Yeah, from Gyazma.
I do not have them.
Oh, it's okay.
Okay.
Greetings from Gyazma. Parawatch. GOW, but clueless and more right-wing. These guys are great, and they're easy to make fun of. Hey, like in my recent tale. That's right, we did plug it. But not only that, they make for a great platform for some pure, scary creepypastas. Substation 9, for example, gives me the heebie-jeebies. And apparently Hippo goes to these places? Why? I also have that question. Yeah, he's employed to do so. In-universe, they're also very interesting due to be the only GOI that just doesn't know what's going on. The only good material for... that's the good material for exploring the effects of the veil. Now for a question. What are some fun/weird theories that you personally believe in, or that you just find interesting in general?
I actually have a really good one that Shakespeare didn't write any of the stuff he wrote.
Ah,
I
yes.
hate that one.
That one I really like.
Yeah. There's a lot of people who believe that. It's like a weird list of people who believe like this.
Yeah, it is funny. It's very interesting one.
It's like, Keanu Reeves? Really? Fucking what?
I read like a super long, like 50 paragraph Reddit post of someone just like desperately explaining how all of it makes sense. All of it.
Yeah. You got to understand, it was Edward de Vere. He wrote it. Shakespeare's too poor to write good. It's like, oh, come on.
I think that the best thing would be if we just have one person or the two of you who answered that one answer each question, because the next email has 4 questions. So it might be best if we just
there we go. Let's just go down.
So I'll read the email and then we'll go Grigori, me, Tstaffor, and Stonefish. Let's say. All right.
Okay.
So Guare says, as someone who grew up in the 2000s, I've always loved anything related to creepypastas. So when I first discovered Parawatch, I fell in love with that GOI in only a few days, devouring all of the hub. Oh, you devoured the hub. Now we can't do it. If I had to choose a favorite tale, it would be Tower B, which had a delightfully creepy atmosphere and a great fucking twist to go with.
Yes, Tower B.
Today's questions. Grigori. Do any of you, Grigori, have a favorite creepypasta? Creepypastas so bad, they good also count.
Candle Cove, obviously.
I was going to say Candle Cove, too.
Candle Cove,
so,
yeah.
I gotta read Candle Cove.
Fucking brilliant.
Finish recording this episode.
Sorry.
It's great.
Amazing.
Everything
It's one of
Chris
the best.
Straub did
Everything
is
Chris
amazing.
Straub has ever done is
Man,
brilliant.
Love Chris Straub. Second question to Harry. I know that both Grigori and Harry have written Parawatch formats, so I'm wondering, what was your creative process for the creation of those pieces? Did it differ significantly from your usual one? Conveniently, I've already answered this. Just write shitposty. Just, you can write in any kind of vocal style you want, any kind of voice that you want, and then that just becomes the voice of that person. And then you write somebody else who types in all caps and is an asshole who comments like a Greek chorus on your story. It's such a fun format to write that way. So I would really strongly recommend people write.
Just pretend to
Parawatch.
be Aiko and respond to one of your fictional characters.
Exactly. Just write all of the people you've ever met who are obnoxious and rude and unkind to you, and you can make them into characters and then cause horrible things to happen to them.
Good. You're right. I should write.
There's nothing.
I should do another.
Exactly.
One.
There's no.
Yeah.
Just vent pieces. Just murder all your friends. Anyway, the third question, which I think I said would be for Tstaffor. Since Series 7 is close coming to an end, which articles and series of articles from this series do you think will continue to be talked about in the future?
So, don't mind me having desperately just scrolled through all of Series 7 while you're reading the other 2 questions, but I gotta say, the Department of Unreality is... I don't even want to say sleeper hit, because it's been very popular already, but I think that's like a really good start of a new canon, or just department and stuff. The Department of Unreality,
good call.
I've enjoyed a lot.
Call. Yeah.
And I think it'll become more popular over time.
That's a good answer. I like that answer. That's so much better than the answer I was going to give when I thought I had to answer all these questions.
What, SCP-6500?
Obviously. And for Stonefish, why are Parawatch formats considered to be tales and not GOI formats?
Answer the question!
You can obviously fix this problem. You're on staff. In my opinion, they fit the latter category much more. Yeah, Stonefish, why?
I mean, I'm junior licensing. Okay. If you insist. I think they're considered tales because they're flexible in format. Like, a GOI format needs to have, very specific, subheadings and CSS, and if not that, you gotta have this... It's like, when you write a GOI format, what you're doing is you're writing an SCP article in another style. And
the only group of interest I know of that has multiple different formats is, the adoption poster and... critter profiles.
Right.
I'm going to go ahead and say I think it should be a GOI format, personally.
Yeah, I think we should consider... I mean, honestly, these should be considered GOI formats. They have... They're tales... Yeah, I mean, they're tales, but, to a certain extent, a tale needs to be kind of more freeform, and there's a bunch of stuff you got to include if you want it to be a real Parawatch article.
If you write in the Parawatch formatting and you write a freeform story that's not Parawatch... That's actually tagged creepypasta. So why isn't Parawatch a GOI format?
Exactly.
And I know this was Stonefish's question, but I also... One of my theories on maybe why is because creepypasta was already an established tag.
Yeah.
So, since it fit that a lot, they were just well, let's just have this be the creepypasta tag, too.
Yeah, but I am not a fan of that because... stuff like the Manistique broadcast is not in the same... category as Parawatch stuff. Parawatch needs its own tag.
I definitely agree with that. It's just my thinking on it.
All right, well, we'll assume that we've achieved that and that staff will immediately do what we want.
Yeah.
Tstaffor, you want to read the next one?
Yes. What's your favorite alien encounter story?
Who's this by? We need to know.
Oh, Crowcat.
There you go.
Crowcat. What's your favorite alien encounter story? Definitely 1051. SCP-1051. That's a very good one.
The Expanse.
For me, it's either the Pandeli egg or the Potosi sheep slayer.
Are those real things?
I don't know. I've never heard of either of those. Which, that was Crowcat saying that, by the way.
I have no idea. I don't know any
Neither.
specific alien abduction stories. I'm like,
I didn't even really understand the question, and I picked like fictional answers, so I don't really have a good answer.
Slaughterhouse 5.
SCP-1051
I like Slaughterhouse 5 a lot.
was written by...
Slaughterhouse 5, yeah, okay.
The Expanse.
There you go.
Fire in the sky.
And that leaves us with one more email.
All right. And this is from Esoterica. This is first-time emailer, long-time listener. This show has really broadened my group of interest horizons, especially with the UIU and GOC, which I originally had minimal interest in. I understand that, especially about the GOC. I look forward to hearing your takes on everyone's favorite amateur paranormal investigators. Speaking of paranormal activity, here's my question. Have you ever experienced a paranormal event? If you haven't, here's a backup question. What's your favorite non-SCP creepypasta? Ha! We already answered that one. No. Absolutely not.
I've experienced... I actually wrote a non-Parawatch creepypasta about a real paranormal event that my family experienced.
Nice.
Called Petrified. And you can read Petrified on the Wiki. I co-wrote it with my mother.
Oh,
Hey, sweet. I co-wrote an article with my dad. So
nice. So,
Mine are completely alone things that weren't co-written. That boat one that we mentioned a while ago that I can't remember the name of, and 6519 that I just wrote about ghosts playing songs for you on the radio. That did kind of happen to me, although,
nice.
Ooh, who knows?
who knows?
But yet, I'm sorry to... no, I've never experienced anything like that. I'm a complete cynic. Which is why I...
Other than the fact that he's a vampire.
That's right, other than that. But that's why I love this shit so fucking much, honestly, because I always kind of wish that I had experienced something like that. Anyway.
We've kept Grigori up a little bit too long, so he's probably going to fall asleep at work tomorrow.
But we're going to plug real quick. The show's email is simplycreativepeople@gmail.com. The Twitter is @simcreate, SIMCREAT, and I'm at Grigori Karpin.
At Harry Blank, SCP.
At Lord Stonefish on Twitter and on the Discord.
And I've kept myself away from Twitter long enough that I don't think I'm ever going to get to it.
Good work.
But I am going to plug my podcast that I wish Aiko had plugged last week, but she didn't.
Unreliable.
It's called the SCIP Squad Pod Cast, where we don't care about what you love, we care about what you write, which we have a couple episodes out at this point. We just interviewed Grigori for the latest episode.
Nice.
I know that guy.
And you
just
do.
Before,
I think I've heard of him.
I mean, he writes long stuff. It's fine.
He's my favorite author.
He's mine as well. Anyway, just before we started recording, I actually shared from the show Twitter the YouTube channel. So
yes, and we upload every other Monday. And this coming Monday, we are uploading.
I didn't think yes was going to be the response. I thought thanks was going to be the response, but that's okay.
Yes, you did. It is a fact that you posted that.
You're an American. You're used to
good
people
job.
responding that
Son
way.
of a bitch. All right. Goodbye, everyone.
Keep it real, Bath Bros.
Bye.
Papa Squat.
Papa Squat.